Hi students, welcome to PhD Jobs and Admission. This is Gauri. In this video, I'm going to teach you about most expected research methodology 100 plus MCQs that you'll be getting asked in PhD entrance exam for the January session 2024. All of you know that there will be PhD entrance exam at Anna University on 8th October 2023 for the January session 2024. And in this PhD entrance exam, section 1 will be for research methodology, that will be common for everyone. And for this, we are going to see different MCQs on research methodology topics. By viewing this session, all of your doubts and concepts will get clear. Okay, that's why all of you need to see this video until the end so that all of your concepts will get clear. You will get an idea exactly what types of MCQs they will ask you in the PhD entrance test. Okay, now let us see quickly about a research methodology complete course that we provide to all the students so that they can prepare very well for the PhD entrance test and they can qualify the PhD entrance test. In this course, we provide you full syllabus video lectures under which theory and MCQ lectures are available. We provide full syllabus notes and mock tests. We have 400 mock tests. We have basically 400 MCQs in the mock tests, and you can solve all of these 400 MCQs, and by that you can prepare very well. Okay, we are providing you notes, and those notes are really very good for your preparation and everything. We are going to provide you more than 1500 MCQs revision PDF. In that revision PDF, you can revise all the topics that you will be getting asked in research methodology section of PhD entrance test, and you will get more than 80% MCQs from this PDF only out of 100% MCQs in the research methodology section of PhD entrance test. And all of this study material will be available in Hindi and English, both the languages. Okay, so students, if you want to buy this course, then you can either download the Global Online app from the Play Store. For that, I have given the link in the description box of this video, or else you can contact me through the WhatsApp numbers that I have shown on this screen. The course fee is only 699, and in this low fees we provide guaranteed selection to all the candidates. Okay, and that's why this course is really helpful. The students who have purchased this course previously in the last year, all those students have qualified the PhD entrance test with really very good marks. And the topics that I have mentioned on the screen, on all of these topics, they will ask you questions in a PhD entrance test, and we have covered all of these topics in complete course. Okay,
Option 1 is research is. What is research? So the options are searching again and again, finding solution to any problem, working in a systematic way to search for truth of any problem, none of the above. So basically students, the meaning of research means re plus search, yani ki searching again and again. But research does not include only the thing that again and again we are searching something. Basically we have a question, and for that question we need a solution, and to find out the solution of that question or problem we do a research, and that's why research is finding solution to any kind of problem. So whatever there is problem, we need to solve that problem, and basically research is the way to find solution to that specific problem. Okay, and basically research is a scientific way, but at every time we don't search for truth of any problem. Sometimes we get wrong answers, and after the wrong answers we start our research again, and that's why the third statement is basically incorrect in terms of research. That's why this get eliminated. Again first statement gets eliminated, and that's why the correct answer over here is second. Okay, which one of the following statements is not correct? So among these options, which is the statement which is not correct? Any person can do research. Research may be without a hypothesis. Research requires library facilities. Research is not always systematic. So basically students, as we have seen earlier in this video, that research is a systematic way to get a solution for a problem, and research can be done by any person. So specifically if someone wants to solve any kind of a problem, and they want to solve those problems by doing the investigative search, and that nothing but the research. So any person can do the research. Okay, it does not like that specific person, this specific person can do the research. It's nothing like that. Anyone who has a problem can do the research. Okay, research may be without a hypothesis. So basically students, hypothesis is nothing but the prediction regarding what will happen in your research process in future. Okay, basically what will be the outcomes of your research, that nothing but the hypothesis. Okay, and sometimes research can be without hypothesis. For example, a descriptive study, and subsequently these terms we are going to see in further videos. So descriptive study, in this study basically we mainly give the characteristics of the situation or event. Okay, and that's why we don't need hypothesis over here, and that's why this statement is also correct. Research requires library facilities. Yes, basically when we have library facilities, then obviously academically it is actually really very helpful for all of us to tackle with our research processes easily, right? And that's why this is also correct statement. But the fourth statement, that is research is not always systematic, this is wrong, because research is always systematic, and every scientist in his or her research books given the statement that research is always systematic. Okay, because this is a systematic procedure, and it follows the scientific methods, and basically this is the searching procedure, but though it is systematic, and that's why it is called as the research. Okay, that's why the correct answer for this is 4, because this is the statement which is incorrect. Okay,
Along with that, we provide you paper 2 study material, because paper 2 is nothing but your section 2, under which they will ask you questions on your concerned research topic and research subject. So for that preparation, this is the study material. In this you will be getting full syllabus notes and MCQs. In the MCQ section, we are providing you most expected MCQs and PYQs PDF. By the use of that PDF, you can solve many MCQs, and you will be getting most expected MCQs, and by that you can prepare very well for paper 2. So the subjects that I have mentioned on the screen, on all of these subjects, currently we have paper 2 study material. If you want study material for any other subject, then you can ask me in the comment box. And the fees for paper 2 study material is only 999, and in this low fees we provide guaranteed selection to all the candidates. To join our courses, you can contact me through the WhatsApp numbers that I have shown on the screen. And paper 2 study material will help you to qualify the PhD entrance test, as well to qualify the interview session, because within interview session they will ask you more often questions on paper 2, and that's why we have covered the notes about that in the study material. Okay,
which one of the following is the main purpose of research? So among the following, which is the main purpose of research? So they have asked you that which is the main goal of doing the research. So to create knowledge, to construct reality, to solve problems, all of the above. Okay, so basically students, goal of research can be to identify or describe a concept, or to explain or predict a situation, or or solution to situation that indicates type of study to be conducted. Basically it facilitates creation of knowledge, as it involves investigation and experimentation. It helps to construct reality by testing hypotheses and generalizing findings. So basically the main purpose of research is to construct reality, because basically it includes the investigation and experimentation, and it basically research describes us different concepts, it explains us different concepts. Research predicts a situation, or it predicts a solution. Okay, and that's why the correct answer for this is second. And to creating a knowledge, or to solve the problems, basically these are the specific we can say ways of doing the research, and these ways are depend upon what kind of research they are. Basically if you are doing the applied research, so in the applied research you solve the specific problems by using the laws, or you apply the laws to your problems to solve them. Okay, this is nothing but the applied research, and that's why third option is nothing but the way of doing an applied research to create a knowledge. This is again the way of doing a research, it is not the main purpose of research, and that's why the correct answer over here is second. Okay, the best meaning of research is, what is the best meaning of research? Adoption of scientific method for creation and application of knowledge, adoption of critical and constructive thinking for solution of problems, arriving at generalizations based on observed data, search for universal truths of life. So basically students, as we have seen in this video, that research is the systematic way to solve a specific problem, right? And that's why research follows or adopt a scientific method, and based on that method in the research we can create and apply our knowledge, and so that we can solve that specific problem. And that's why the best meaning of research is this: adoption of scientific method for creation and application of knowledge. Okay, in the list of statements given below, which of them offer a suitable definition of research? Give your answer by selecting from the code. So basically here we have given 6 statements, and among these list of 6 statements we have to find out a suitable definition of research. So let us see which are these statements. Research means a repeated search. Research is basically an answer to a question. Research provides an authentic solution to a problem. Research is an endeavor to prove one's hypothesis. Research is a meaning-giving process. Research means drawing a sample from a defined population. So students, so far we are going to see the meaning of research or concepts of research, right, in this video. So basically, as we have seen that we can solve any kind of a problem by doing the research, and that's why the second statement is the correct definition of research, which is research is basically an answer to a question. As well, research provides us an authentic solution to a problem, and that's why we do the research. Okay, because it gives us an authentic solution to our problem. Okay, so this is again correct definition of research. And as well, research is a meaning giving process. I mean to say कि this is not meaningless. If it would be meaningless, then obviously anyone won't go for a research, right? Research is a systematic process, and that's why it is a meaning giving process, and it gives us an authentic solution to our problem. Okay, and that's why this statement is again the correct definition of research. Okay, and research is not only a repeated search. This is not only a repeated search, so this get eliminated. As well, research is not an only endeavor to prove one's hypothesis, because sometimes sometimes in some cases hypothesis is not required. For example, descriptive research, here hypothesis is not required, and that's why here research can't be like we are going to prove the hypothesis of descriptive research. Okay, because hypothesis is not there. So again, this is not the definition of research, so this gets eliminated. And as well, drawing a sample from a defined population is nothing but one of the process of research. Okay, or one of the stage of research process, and subsequently in further videos we are going to see these concepts. So again, this is not the definition of research, and that's why the correct answer over here is 4, that is 2, 3 and 5. Okay, during research, when we avoid speculative and metaphysical approaches and instead concentrate on studying observable facts, it is called. So during research, when we avoid intuitive approaches, यानी कि the approaches basically which are on our intuitions or on the heard things that we have heard. Okay, and basically we avoid such kind of approaches, and instead we concentrate on the studying observable facts. So what we call it as, okay, so whether it is called as feminism or ethnomethodology or constructionism or positivism, So students, the correct answer for this question is 4, positivism, because again during research positivism is one of the approach, okay, towards the research. This is the philosophical approach towards the reason, and this is the approach that the standards of science should be applied to social analysis, and basically it is quantitative approach, and it relies on scientific evidence, and it it claims that all knowledge must be verified through scientific methods. Okay, and as well in the positivism no one um, no one depends upon the intuitive approaches, no one depends upon the heard things. Basically we promises towards the evidences, our results basically based upon the evidences, proper evidences, or you can say is studying proper observable facts. Okay, and what is constructionism? It is a learning theory, and it advocates a student centered learning model, and it believes that children construct their new knowledge by constructing physical and manipulating materials. So basically the meaning of constructionism is that the persons in the world get their knowledge through the learning processes. Okay, that is called as the constructionism. Ethnomethodology is nothing but the approach towards the research, and in this approach basically we study the society, the culture of the society. Okay, feminism, all of we know that what is feminism. So within the feminism concept we actually state that the female candidates should have the equal opportunities, should have the equal chances for everything, like men have in the world. Okay, that is nothing but the feminism. So basically it depends upon the equality between the gender. So that's why here the correct answer is 4. Okay, one of the main aims of science is, so what is the one of the main aim of science? Whether it is persuasion, whether it is prediction, whether it is post-prediction, or whether it is assertion. So obviously the main aim of science is what? Prediction. So prediction is nothing but what? The hypothesis, right? So if we don't have hypothesis, if we don't have prediction, then obviously we can't follow up such kind of predictions through our statistical methods. Okay, and that's why one of the aim of science is making hypothesis or prediction. What is persuasion? Persuasion is like convincing the persons. Okay, post-prediction means the facts that have been already occurred, and we are giving our statements about the facts that have been already occurred. So basically post-prediction is anonym, or this is the opposite term of prediction. Okay, assertion is the definitive or strong statement about the facts. Okay, assertion. Okay, all of we know about this, right? That's why here the correct answer is 2nd. Dash has established a close relationship between the growth of thinking and the development of mathematical concepts. So among these options, which is the concept, and because of this concept, a close relationship between the growth of thinking and development of mathematical concepts are established. So whether it is research, whether it is tests, then equation or demonstration. So basically students, within the mathematical concepts there are 3 basic concepts, and those concepts are spatial thinking. This is the first concept. Second one is number and operation on number, and the third concept is measurement. So basically students, the children from their primary school goes towards the higher secondary schools. So as they grow, their mathematical concepts also as they grow, their mathematical concepts as well grows. Okay, so I mean to say that whenever children are in the elementary school, so the way they think, okay, and the way they solve the mathematical concepts are interrelated with each other. So as they grow, their thinking power also grows, and that's why they will deal with more difficult mathematical concepts. And that's why research, okay, because of research we get to know that growth of thinking and the development of mathematical concepts has a close relationship. Okay, and that's why here the correct answer is 1. Okay, which among the following is not the principle associated with positivism? So among these principles, which is the principle which is not associated with positivism? So earlier in this video only we have seen what is positivism, right? So positivism basically rely on the observable facts, and basically we measure those observable facts, and we rely on the proper evidences, and based on these evidences we get our results. So this is nothing but the positivism. Okay, so here there are different options like phenomenalism, deductivism, inductivism, interpretivism. So basically within the positivism there are 3 principles, and those are phenomenalism, deductivism, and inductivism. So basically what is phenomenalism? So basically phenomenalism accepts that physical objects can be known as they appear, as perceived phenomena. Okay, deductivism means that this is the one of the approach towards the research, and here the theory basically already exists in the world, and based on the theory we develop the hypothesis, we test the hypothesis, and we get our results. Okay, this is nothing but the deductivism. And what is inductivism? So within inductivism we first of all observe the facts, and based upon the facts we formulate a theory. So all of these 3 are the principles which are associated with the principle of positivism, but interpretivism is the principle which is not associated with the positivism, because interpretivism associated with qualitative research, okay, and positivism associated with quantitative research. So this is the bigger difference between them. And as well the strategies here are qualitative, and research design is as well qualitative, and here research design should be flexible and unstructured. But in the positivism the research design is not flexible, and it is and it is structured. Okay, that's why here the correct answer is 4, that is interpretivism, because here interpretivism is the principle which is not associated with positivism. Okay, what is the main aim of educational research? So there are lots of research types, and subsequently in the further videos we are going to see them. So whenever we are dealing with educational kind of research, then what is the aim of that research? So basically identifying major problems that need to be solved, searching for the new facts and principles underlying the process of education, identifying the aims of education, identifying the values that need to be inculcated in the pupils. So basically this is the educational research, and that's why the aims should be in the educational field, right? And that's why the aim of educational research is that we search for the new facts and principles underlying the process of education. Okay, because these things are really very necessary to deal with the educational field, and to develop the educational field in the world. Okay, and that's why the correct answer for this is 2nd, that is searching for the new facts and principles underlying the process of education. Okay, first question is, the research that applies the laws at the time of field study to draw more and more clear ideas about the problem is dash. So among these options, which is the type of research which applies the laws at the time of field study, and because of that we can draw more and more clear ideas about the problem. Okay, so basically whether it is applied research, whether it is action research, whether it is explanatory research, or whether it is correlational studies. So basically students, the correct answer for this is applied research, because applied research is the type of research in which basically we solve the immediate problems, but apart from that we apply the laws, or we apply the existing theory or principles to our problem. And by applying the laws or principles, it would be easier for all of us, so that we can solve the problems very easily, and so that we will get the conclusions of our results very easily and very efficiently. Okay, and that's why here the correct answer is 1. Action research is again the type of research, and again by using action research we basically solve the immediate problems, but here we don't apply the laws to our problems. This is the big difference between action research and applied research. And that's why specifically action research is implemented in the classroom environment, or you can say in the teaching and learning processes. Okay, explanatory research, as the name suggests, explanatory, so basically it explains the relationship between the variables. Okay, correlational studies, so basically it establishes the correlation between the variables. Okay, that's why the correct answer for this question is 1. Okay, if a researcher conducts a research on finding out which administrative style contributes more to institutional effectiveness, this will be an example of. So basically if I am a researcher and I want to find out that how much or at what amount administrative style contributes more to institutional effectiveness, then what kind of research I will follow. So basically whether I will follow basic research or action research or applied research or none of the above. So students, this question is somehow tricky, because here we are going to find out the solution to our problem. Okay, but basically here we need to apply a law, so that we will get the solution to our problem very efficiently or easily. Okay, and that's why the correct answer for this is 3, that is applied research. So why not action research? Because students, as I have told you that action research is mostly applicable in the field of teaching and learning processes. But here we are not doing anything relevant to teaching and learning processes. Here we are going to find out which administrative style contributes more to institutional effectiveness. Okay, so basically we are going to finding out about different administrative styles, and then subsequently we are going to check how much it will be having an effect on the institutional effectiveness. Okay, so basically here we are going to implement an applied research, not an action research. And basic research is nothing but the fundamental research. This is the pure research, and mainly it focuses upon the development of a theory. Okay, so basically by using basic research we don't solve the immediate problems like this. Okay, that's why the correct answer for this is 3, that is applied research. Okay, which of the following research forms aims primarily at putting to use the theoretical advances with an eye on exploring the potential for generalizability? So from these research options, among these research options, which is the research type which primarily aims to use the theoretical advances which are already there, and as well here our aim is to explore the potential for generalizability. So basically students, generalizability is nothing but we are going to generalize the results of our solution to the real facts or to the another real situations. This is called as the generalizability. So basically what is that research? So whether it is fundamental research, whether it is evaluative research, whether it is action research, whether it is applied research. So students, here basically we are using the theoretical advances, and the meaning of this is that we are using here the different laws or principles. So in other words, basically we are applying the different laws and principles here to our problems, and that's why here by using such laws and principles we are going to solve the problems and we will get the solution. And after getting the solution, it has the that much amount of potential so that we can explore it for generalizability purposes. Okay, so that's why here the correct answer is 4, because here we are applying the laws, okay, to our research problem, and this is nothing but the applied research. So this is not action research, because within the action research we don't apply any kind of laws, we just solve the immediate problem here. Evaluative research, basically as the name suggests, evaluative. So here we do the evaluation. For example, we have cause and effect relationship between the variables. So basically here we evaluate the amount of cause, like how much causes are causing the effects. Okay, so we are going to here evaluate that what is amount of the cause and what is the effect of that kind of amount of a cause. So basically we are here evaluating the amount of cause. Okay, this is nothing but the evaluative research. Fundamental research, yani ki pure research or basic research, that I have told you earlier in this video. Okay, so the correct answer for this question is 4. Okay, the principles of fundamental research are used in. So basically the principles of fundamental research are used in which kind of research? So whether we use it in action research, applied research, philosophical research, historical research. Okay, so basically students, fundamental research here is nothing but the pure research, and in this research basically we develop the theories, right? And basically we also develop the principles or laws over here. So these kind of principles or laws are used in which kind of research? So obviously we use the laws or principles in the applied research, okay, to solve our problems, right? That's why the correct answer for this question is 2nd. And all of you know that what is action research, and philosophical research is nothing but basically here we study the philosophy of the things. So for example, there is some kind of a data, or there is some kind of a relationship between the variables. So here we find out the roots of it. Basically we find out the causes of it or the history of it. Okay, so this is nothing but the philosophy of that particular relationship between the variables, or philosophy of that particular data, like how that data has been discovered in this world, what are the roots of that data. So this is nothing but the philosophy. So all of these things are studied in philosophical research. Okay, historical research, basically within the historical research we study the past events, and by using those past events we apply those past events for our present and future work. Okay, this is nothing but the historical research. Okay, that's why the correct answer over here is 2nd. On what is the social research function of the scientific method not based? So basically from these options, which is the option on which social research function of the scientific method is not dependent, or it is not based? Okay, so students, all of you know that what is scientific method. Basically scientific method is very systematic method, and it follows the step by step procedures, and we are going to see those procedures in the upcoming videos. Okay, and social research function is nothing but it is similar to the natural research function. Okay, so basically social research function means that here we are studying the society, we are studying the interaction of human behavior with the society. Okay, this is nothing but the social research function. Okay, and that's why the social research function of the scientific method is not based upon the thinking, because it based upon the evidence, it based upon the empirical methods. Empirical methods means basically we observe the facts, we measure those facts, and we have a proper evidence, and based upon that evidence we come to the conclusion part. Okay, so basically here we don't only think about it, we do the actions. Okay, and that's why here we do the testing, we do the experiments, as well we do the lots of rationality. Rationality is nothing but there is a proper evidence, there are proper empirical methods. This is nothing but the rationality, and we don't only think over here. Okay, and that's why the social research function of the scientific method is not based upon the thinking. Okay, and that's why the correct answer over here is 1. Okay, which of the following research focuses on enhancing the corpus of knowledge in a given field? So from these research options, which is the research which focuses upon to enhance the knowledge in a given field? Okay, so whether it is action research, whether it is applied research, whether it is evaluative research, or whether it is fundamental research. So obviously the correct answer is 4. Now all of you understood that fundamental research is the basic research, and basically in this research we basically develop a particular theory. Okay, and here there is no any kind of a generalization, and as well the main purpose of this research type is that to enhance our knowledge in a given field. Okay, because here as we develop a theory, as we create the laws, as we create the principles, so basically we are going to develop our knowledge in the respective field. Okay, and that's why the correct answer for this question is 4. As we know that in the action research and applied research, in both of these researches we basically solve the immediate problems, but the ways of doing that is different. Okay, the aims of both the researches are same, but the ways of doing those are different in both the types of research. And all of you know that evaluative research, within the evaluative research basically we evaluates the causes. Okay, evaluation means that how small the amount causes the effect, or how larger the amount causes the effect, like that. Okay, so this is nothing but the evaluative research. Okay, that's why here the correct answer is 4. Scientific research has the ultimate goal of explaining any phenomenon by. Okay, so whether it is conditional laws, whether it is laws of uniqueness, whether it is laws of intuition, whether it is laws of generalization. So basically students, scientific research has the ultimate goal of explaining any kind of phenomenon by the laws of generalization. Okay, so why this is? Because laws of generalization means basically we have a research study, and okay, we are getting results from our research study. So basically we apply the results of these research study to the real facts. Okay, and this is nothing but the law of generalization, because you are generalizing the results of the research to the real facts. Okay, and this is the most important thing, and that's why the scientific research has the ultimate goal to explain any kind of phenomenon by these laws of generalization. All of you getting? Because for example, I can give you example. We have a target population. Okay, but it is impossible to study all of this target population, because the number of participants will be very large, and it is impossible to deal with all these target population. That's why from the target population we take out some samples from the sampling methods, and we do our research from this sample, on this sample, and basically we get the results from these samples, and we apply these results to the target population, because our aim of the study is what? Target population. Okay, not sample. That's why we apply these results to the target population. We apply the conclusion of these results to the target population. All of you getting? Because the samples are taken from this target population only. So this is nothing but the laws of generalization. So if you don't do the generalization, then how you can interpret your results according to your aims? It won't be possible. All of you getting? And that's why the correct answer over here is 4. So remember this from this time, that scientific research has the ultimate goal of explaining any kind of phenomenon by the laws of generalization. Okay. So basically, what are the conditional laws? So conditional laws are nothing but the laws which fulfill the proper conditions. For example, some research studies require some kind of conditions. So when we fulfill those conditions, then only our results will be valid. Okay, if the conditions will not be there, then obviously the results will be invalid. So like that. So these are the conditional laws. Then laws of intuition means that basically we apply our intuitions to our result section of our research study. So basically here we don't use the evidence, okay, or we don't rely on the evidence. So basically we rely on our thinking power, on our thinking intuitions, like that. So these are the laws of intuition. And laws of uniqueness. So basically laws of uniqueness means that the things or the materials over there has the unique properties. Okay, but basically this kind of law is not applicable in the research methodology. Conditional laws, laws of intuition, and laws of generalization, these are the three laws which are applicable in research methodology section. Okay, that's why here the correct answer is 4. If the purpose of the research is for theory building, then it is a. So if any kind of research has the purpose to develop a theory, then obviously what is that research? So whether it is action research, whether it is historical research, whether it is fundamental research, or whether it is applied research. So obviously students, the correct answer is fundamental research. As I have told you in this video that within the fundamental research, basically we formalize the theory. Basically our main aim is to theory building. Okay, and this is the ultimate purpose of this fundamental research. Okay, that's why here the correct answer is 3. A scientific approach in social science research should take into account. So whenever you are doing social science research, then obviously you follow the scientific approach. So here approach means method. So basically you follow the scientific method, and while doing this scientific method, what kind of things you should take into account. So whether you should take into account metaphysical elements, spurious relations, the factor of covariation, the time order, or possibility of theorization. So basically students, this is nothing but the social science research. Though it is a social science research, but still it based upon the evidence. Okay, and within this type of research, basically the factor of covariation occurs. Okay, so factor of covariation means that basically here you are going to establish the covariation between the variables. So I mean to say, if you decrease or increase the value of one variable, then obviously they are going to be decrease or increase the value of the another variable. So basically here you are going to establish the covariation or correlation between the variables, okay, that you are studying. Then second one is time order. So a time order means basically there are two kinds of variables, independent variable and dependent variable. So independent variable is the cause variable which causes the effects, and dependent variable is nothing but the effects which are caused by the cause variable. Okay, so basically students, independent variable should come first. Okay, they should come before the dependent variable, because independent variable is the cause and dependent variable is the effect. All of you getting? And that's why you should take into account the time order. I mean to say, you should take into consideration that independent variable should come first and then dependent variable should come, okay, after that. Then third one is possibility of theorization. It means that whenever you get the final results of your research study, then after all you generalize those results to the reality. Okay, so basically whenever you do the generalization, you make up a theory to show that your research study is valid, to show that you have generalized the results of your research study to the reality. So basically you are going to describe everything, whatever you have done in your research study, and what are your basic conclusions, what are your results. So basically based on your results you make the conclusion, and this is nothing but the theorization. Basically you mention your all of the activities, your results, your conclusion in in the word format. This is nothing but the theorization, and this is the most important thing, and you should consider this whenever you are doing social science research by using scientific methods. Okay, so you should not consider spurious relations, because spurious relations means there is a fake relationship between the variables you are studying. So if there are fake relationship, then obviously you will get the false results, right? And that's why you should eliminate the spurious relations. And as well, metaphysical elements means that basically these are oriented to the metaphysics, and basically a metaphysics branch is oriented towards the imaginative power, or you can say thinking power. So basically metaphysics is not rely on the evidence, or it not relies on the proper empirical methods like social science research relies. That's why we should not take into account metaphysical elements as well, and that's why your correct answer should be 3 C D E only, because here you should take into account the factor of covariation. I mean to say, you should understand, or you should establish the correlation between the variables. You should understand, or you should establish that independent variable should come first, and then dependent variable should come secondly. Then third one is the possibility of theorization, which you should take into account. I mean to say, you should apply your conclusion in the wording format. Okay, and that's why you will able to understand it, and as well the reader will able to understand whatever you have done in your research study. Okay, so you should take into account C, D and E options, and you should not take into account metaphysical elements and spurious relations. Okay, Newton gave 3 basic laws of motion. This research is categorized as. So basically students, this is the application of the research type, and basically the options over here are descriptive research, sample survey, fundamental research, applied research. So basically students, we have discussed fundamental research and applied research in this video. Now I am going to describe you what is descriptive research and what is sample survey. So basically students, descriptive research is the type of research, and in this research method basically we describe the characteristics. Okay, so basically we describe any kind of a situation, incidence or fact by using this kind of research. Okay, and what is a sample survey? Sample survey is nothing but you are doing a survey. Basically you are giving the questions to your respondents, and your respondents give the answers to your questions. So these are the sample surveys. Okay, so students, this question is homework to all of you, and you are going to answer me in the comment box. Basically Newton gave 3 basic laws of motion, and this research is categorized as what type of research? What do you think? Whether it is descriptive research, whether it is sample survey, or whether it is fundamental research, or whether it is applied research. Okay, so I want the answers from all of you students, and I know you will answer me accurately. And though if you have any doubts regarding this, you can ask me in the comment box. So students, thank you for watching this session. I hope all of you understood whatever I have discussed with you in this video. I have discussed with you mainly fundamental and applied research, because both of these research are opposite to each other. Fundamental research is pure research, and within this research basically we want to enhance our knowledge. Basically here we formulate a theory, and there is no any kind of a generalization. And in the applied research basically we solve the immediate problems. There is generalization, and as well here we use the laws from the fundamental research to solve the immediate problems in the applied research. Okay, so these are the 2 basic differences between fundamental and applied research. All of you understood students? If you have any doubts, then again I am going to tell you that you can ask me in the comment box. Okay, first question is, the research method that provides the strongest evidence for causality is. So among these options, which is the research method which provides us the strongest evidence for causality? Causality means the cause and effect relationship between the variables. Okay, so whether it is ethnography, whether it is experimental, whether it is causal, comparative, or correlational. So let us step by step think about it, what are the meanings of each and every research method. So within the ethnography research method, basically this is the qualitative type of research method, because in this research method a researcher wants to study the culture of a particular society or community. Okay, in the experimental research method, basically this is the quantitative research method, and within the experimental research method, a researcher manipulates the independent variable and sees what are the effects of it on the dependent variable. So basically here within the experimental method, we are going to test the cause and effect relationship between the variables, and basically we get the strongest evidence in this kind of research, because we test the hypothesis by using the different statistical techniques, and finally we get the results based upon our observations and proper evidence. And that's why experimental method gives us the strongest evidence for causality, that is the cause and effect relationship between the variables. Okay, what is causal comparative research method? So this is the research method in which as well we are going to study the cause and effect relationship between the variables, but here we are going to study the facts which are already happened in the past. Okay, and that's why we don't have proper control over the variables like we have the control over the variables in experimental research. So this is the most important thing in the causal comparative research method. And as well, if there is a cause and effect relationship between the variables, then we will get the right results, but if it is not there, then we don't get the proper results, and that's why here we don't have the strongest evidence for causality. Okay, like we have in the experimental research method. Okay, within the correlational research method, we are going to assess or we are going to identify the correlation between the variables. Basically there is correlation between the variables which is already exist over there. We are going to just identify the correlation between them. Correlation is nothing but whenever we are going to decrease or increase the amount of one variable, then because of that there will be decrease or increase in the amount of the another variable, that we call it as correlation. Okay, because the values of those variables are correlating with each other. Okay, and that's why the correct answer for this question is second, that is experimental research method. And that's why students, in experimental study, researcher manipulates independent variable and controls for all other variables that could influence outcome, and it allows for establishment of cause and effect relationship between independent and dependent variables. So because of all these characteristic features of the experimental research method, it provides us the strongest evidence for causality. Next is specific feature which differentiates all experimental research from all other method of research is. So what is the difference between experimental research and all other research methods? Basically, what is the special feature which is there in the experimental research, and because of that we are going to differentiate the experimental research method from the other research methods. So whether it is direct observation of events or control of variables or manipulation of independent variable or use of random sample. So I have already told you in the question 1 that what is the experimental research, but again I am going to discuss the some salient features of it. So basically in the experimental research method we will be having the controlled environment. It means that we do our experiments in a proper controlled environment in a laboratory, and these environments are really essential, because in these environments only we can properly do our measurements, our testing. Okay, now second is random sample. Okay, so here we use two different types of groups, control group and treatment group, and whenever we want to assign the participants in these two groups, we are going to assign them randomly. There is no any bias over here. Okay, now next is control of variables. So we are going to be having a proper control, or you can say complete control, on the variables in the study. So basically we control all the other variables in the experimental research apart from the variable which is under study. Okay. And fourth one is manipulation of independent variable. Manipulation of independent variable. Okay. So the salient feature of experimental research is that we are going to manipulate the independent variable, that is the cause variable, and we are going to search for or measure for the effect of this amount of independent variable on the dependent variable, that is the effect variable. So this is the basic, or you can say unique feature of experimental research, and because of this feature we are going to differentiate experimental research from other methods of research. Okay. And another salient feature is that direct observation. So you can do direct observations in this research method as well, but this is not the unique feature, and that's why the correct answer for this question is 3, that is manipulation of independent variable, because this is the unique feature of this experimental research method, and other features are there in the experimental research method, but these features are as well there in other research methods also. Okay. The main difference between laboratory experiment and field experiment is in. So what is the main difference between laboratory experiment and field experiment? So the main difference between laboratory experiment and field experiment is that laboratory experiment is going to be held in a proper controlled environment, in the lab environment. Okay. And field experiment it is going to be done in the natural environment, and that's why in the laboratory experiment we can control all of the extraneous variables whichever there are, because all of the situations are under our control. We are going to make the artificial environment which is called as the laboratory or controlled environment. Okay. Within the field experiment, as it is whole natural, and that's why we don't have proper control on the extraneous variables. So basically the extraneous variables are the variables on which researcher don't want to study anything, but because of these extraneous variables they having to be having a false effect on the results of our research study. Okay. And that's why we should have to remove such kind of extraneous variables or control such extraneous variables, and that's why we go for the experimental research method, because we can do such kind of research methods in the laboratory only, in the controlled environment, and so that we can control the extraneous variables on a greater degree than the field experiment. Okay. So let us see different options. Precision in measurement of variables, it means that how precise the measurement of variables are there. Then degree of control of extraneous variables, that which I have told you for explanation part of this question. Use of data analysis techniques, then application of research instruments. So the correct answer for this is second, that I have told you. The amount of degree of control of extraneous variables is the main difference between laboratory experiment and field experiment, because precision in measurement of variables can be done in both the experimental methods, and the precision won't change whether it is laboratory experiment or a field experiment. As well, you can do lots of data analysis techniques in both the research methods, they won't change, and also you can apply different research instruments, they also won't change. But the correct answer for this is second, because degree of control of extraneous variables are going to be changed in the laboratory experiment and in the field experiment. An investigator uses two matched groups to compare effectiveness of two methods of teaching science, and this study would come in the ambit of. So investigator wants to see what is the effectiveness of two methods of teaching science, and for that he has made two matched groups. So basically I have two groups over here, group 1 and group 2, and I'm going to compare these groups because I want to study the effectiveness of two methods of teaching science. So for doing such kind of study, what a kind of study I'm going to follow. So whether it is experimental study, whether it is causal comparative study, descriptive survey study, phenomenological study, as here there are two groups, okay, and these two groups are matched groups. Okay, and as well we are going to compare these groups. Because of that, we are going to assess the effectiveness of two methods of teaching science. Okay, so for such studies we are going to be having the quantitative research method mostly, because if we want to compare the two groups, then obviously here we are going to make the null hypothesis and research hypothesis, and we are going to test here the null hypothesis, whether we are going to accept the null hypothesis or reject it. And that's why here we are going to use the different statistical techniques to test the null hypothesis, and that's why the method is quantitative. But from these options, descriptive survey study is the qualitative, you can say it is qualitative and quantitative, both mixed research method. But phenomenological study is the qualitative, because within the phenomenological study we are going to study the lived experiences of the people, and for that we are going to study their qualitative characteristics. Okay, how a particular person have experienced the particular event or the particular situation. So we are going to study all these kind of stuffs by using the phenomenological study, which is a qualitative research study. That's why this option is getting eliminated. Now within the descriptive survey study, we are going to make a questionnaire, and we are going to share such kinds of questionnaires to our respondents, and respondents give us the answers for our open-ended questions, because this is descriptive, and that's why we are going to get the answers in the descriptive format. So here as well we are not going to compare any kind of groups, right, though it is quantitative and as well as qualitative research method. So this also getting eliminated. Within the causal comparative study, I have told you that in the causal comparative study the situation or the fact has been already occurred, and in this kind of study we don't have the control on the variables like we have in the experimental study. But if I am going to do a certain kind of research, and in that if I am going to compare the two groups, then obviously I should have the control upon the variables. Okay, and that's why this is also get eliminated. So the correct answer for this is experimental study, because here I want to see the effectiveness of two methods of teaching science, and for that I am going to use the two matched groups. So for a particular each and every group I am going to assign different participants, and I am going to treat them based upon the two methods of teaching science, and then after that I can see the effectiveness. Okay, and that's why I should have the control over the variables, which I can do it from using the experimental study. Next is, this is an example for true experimental design. So from these study designs, which is the example for true experimental design. So one shot case study, post test only single group design, Solomon 4 group design, or static group design. So first of all we will see what is the group design. Okay, so in group designs, analysis of data and conclusion draw from study occur at level of group, not individual participants. So here whatever we get the conclusions, okay, so these conclusions are made from the groups, okay, not from the individual persons. Okay, this is called as the group design. Now let us see each and every study over here. What is one shot case study? Okay, so here single group of test units is exposed to experimental treatment and single measurement is taken afterward. Only measures post test results and does not use control group. Okay, now next is post test only single group design. What is this? So this is basically the quasi experimental research design. It means that it is not fully the experimental research design, and here dependent variable is measured for one group of participants following treatment. What is Solomon 4 group design? So basically Solomon 4 group design attempts to take into account influence of pre-testing on subsequent post-test results. And the last one is static group design. So here two groups are used, experimental and control, and test units are not assigned randomly between both groups. So what is exactly true experimental research design? So I have told you earlier in this video only that here randomly participants are assigned as well there is control over the variables. Okay, so these are the two main things. And as well we are going to manipulate the independent variable over here, manipulation of the independent variable. So these are the most important features of true experimental research design. But within the one shot case study, here there is only single group of test unit, and the most important thing in true experimental research design is that we are going to use the two groups, and among that two groups, control group is there and treatment group is there. But in the one shot case study, we are going to use only one group, single group, and that's why this is eliminated. This is not a true experimental research design. Even in post test only single group design, there is only one group. And as well, this is the quasi experimental research design. It is not a true experimental research design, so this is as well get eliminated. And the Solomon 4 group design, so over here we are going to assess our treatment groups on two bases. First of all, the pre-treatment as well and the post-treatment as well. So we are going to see over here what are the effects of pre-treatment conditions on the post-treatment conditions, and that's why here we are going to use the 4 group designs. And as well, there is random assignment of the participants, and as well there is control over the variables. So overall, this is the true experimental research design. That's why the correct answer for this is 3. And in the static group design, though we have two groups, one is experimental and one is control group, but still here there is no random assignment of the participants, and that's why this is not a true experimental research design. That's why the correct answer to this is Solomon 4 group design. In which method of research the independent variable is manipulated to observe and measure its effect on dependent variable? This is the easiest question, and obviously the correct answer for this is experimental method, because this is the only research method, and the salient and unique feature of experimental method is that we are going to manipulate the independent variable and we are going to observe and measure its effect on the dependent variable. And ex post facto research method is nothing but the research method in which we are going to study the causes of the facts which are already occurred in the past, or which are already occurred in the recent past. Okay. Case study research method is a research method in which we are going to study in-depth information about a single individual person, or we are going to study in-depth information of a particular group, okay, for a longer period of time. Historical research method is the research method in which we are going to study the past events and we are going to see their effects on our present and our future. And that's why the correct answer for this is second. The sequence of stages in experimental research. Now whatever the research type is over there, in the every research type there are different kinds of stages, and those stages have the common characteristics, and those stages are going to be changed according to the research types. So here are some sequence have been given from A to E, and we are going to select the correct sequence of stages in the experimental research design. So whether it is selection of the setting first, or operationalization of variables, administration of the experiment, selection of the experimental design, then analysis and interpretation of results. So basically your first stage should be selection of the setting. Okay, because you should have the proper setting, and you should have to assign the proper setting in which environmental condition or in which controlled environment you are going to do your experimental research. So first of all, select the setting. Then second is that selection of the experimental design. So basically the experimental design is nothing but the outline, through which outline you are going to do your whole research process. This is nothing but the experimental design. And the third stage would be operationalization of variables. So operationalization of variables is nothing but you are going to having the control on the variables, and here you are going to having the control on independent variable. You are going to have the manipulation of independent variable, and you are going to study the dependent variable. So this is nothing but operationalization of variables. And the fourth one is administration of the experiment, and this is nothing but you are going to do the whole experiment over here. And the fifth one is that analysis and interpretation of results. This should be your last stage. You are going to analyze the data whatever you have got, and after that you are going to interpret that data and finally conclude your research. And that's why the correct answer for this is third, that is A, D, B, C, E, because here A is your first stage, then D is your second, then B is your third, C is fourth, and E is fifth. Which is the process not needed in experimental research? So among these processes, which is the process which is not needed in experimental research? Manipulation and replication, then controlling, observation, absence of treatment group. Obviously the correct answer should be 4, because we should be having the treatment group in the experimental research, because without treatment group, on which group you are going to treat? Okay, and that's why treatment group is the essential part of the experimental research. And all of these processes, manipulation and replication is also important, because here you are going to manipulate the independent variable. Replication means you are going to see your results of the experimental research through different conditions. So you are going to do your research in different conditions. That is nothing but the replication. Controlling means that you are going to be having a controlling on all the aspects of the variables, apart from the variable which is under study. Then observation means you are going to observe the variables, you are going to observe the measurements, everything. So all of these processes are important in the experimental research, and that's why the correct answer is 4. Next is the research method which focuses on establishing causal relationships with controls among variables, independent, moderator, and dependent, is called. So among these research methods, which is the research method which focuses upon establishing the causal relationships between the variables, and as well here we are going to be having controls among the variables like independent variable, moderator variable, or dependent variable. Okay, so ex post facto method, survey method, case study method, experimental method. Now until now all of you have been understood that whenever I want to focus upon establishing causal relationships, and as well along with that if I want to control over the variables, okay, then obviously I will follow the experimental method, because this is the only method in which I will be having the control over the variables completely. Okay, and there is no control over the variable which is under study, but for other variables I'll be having the control. And as well my focus is that I want to establish the causal relationships between the variables. So these two things make me that I'm going to do the experimental research method. And I have told you earlier that what is ex post facto method, what is survey method, and what is case study method. So here within the ex post facto method I won't be having the control over the variables, right? That's why it gets eliminated. Within the survey method, though I will be having the variables, but still my focus is not on the establishing causal relationships, because here I am getting the opinions from my respondents. So this is the most important for me in such kind of methods. And within the case study method as well, I want the opinions from my individual person or from my groups. Okay, this is also not the correct answer. So first 3 options get eliminated, and that's why the correct answer is 4. Experimental researches are aimed to. So what is the aim of experimental research methods? Establish association between variables, is describe variables, study the application of theory, or study trend analysis. It means that what is the trending in the market, and we are going to study those trend, okay, in the market. So we are going to analyze the data over here in the trend market. Okay, so I'm going to tell you that the main elements of experimental research are control, that I have told you earlier, control, then manipulation, then random selection, and random assignment. assignment. So all of these are the main elements of the experimental researches, and that's why the main aim of experimental research is to establish the association between variables. It means that I'm going to establish the causality between the variables. So this is the main aim of the experimental research method. Okay, this question is identify the sequence of following steps in mail surveys. So basically you have given here 5 steps of mail surveys, and we are going to be follow them or write these steps in a sequentially manner. Okay, so what are basically the mail surveys? So in mail surveys, survey is administered through mail. So basically we are going to ask the questions to our respondents through the mail. Okay, and that's why there are a lot of procedures in that. The first step over here is select a sample. So you are going to select a sample. Then after that, your second step should be constructing a questionnaire. Okay, so you are going to construct a questionnaire. Okay, then after that, your third step should be preparing a cover letter. Preparing a cover letter. Now the cover letter is required to encourage the respondents or participants and to introduce the survey, and as well it should explain the purpose of survey, and it should provide instructions for completing it and focus on importance of respondents participation. Okay, then after that your fourth step should be mail the questionnaire. Okay, mail the questionnaire to the participants, and your last step should be monitor the written rate of the mail. So it means that you are going to follow up your response rate from the participants and the non-participants, okay, as well. So basically you are going to provide more consent, or you are going to provide more information to the non-participants so that they will participate in the survey and they will provide you the responses. So that students, the correct answer for this question should be 4. E, A, C, B, D, because here your E should be, that is select a sample, should be first step. A should be second step, that is constructing a questionnaire. Third, prepare a cover letter should be your third step. B, mail the questionnaire should be your fourth step, and monitor the written rate of mail should be your fifth step. Okay, now next is which of the following is a longitudinal design. Okay, so basically students, here we have given different types of designs, and from which we are going to identify from this which are the longitudinal designs. So whether it is panel study, whether it is cross-sectional or trend, or both, 1 and 3 are longitudinal designs. So basically students, longitudinal design is the type of descriptive method. Okay, and descriptive method means we are going to provide the characteristics of a situation, event, or person or group of people. Okay, so within the longitudinal design we are going to study single individual for a longer period of time. Okay, and that's why longitudinal design has again 3 types of designs, and the first one is panel study. Okay, panel study. So panel study is the type of longitudinal design in which unit of analysis is observed at specific intervals over a long period of time. Now second study is cohort. Okay, so within cohort study we collect information from group of people who share specific characteristics. Okay, and now the third study design is trend study design. Okay, so in which we focus on same population of people using opinion poll surveys to look at their attitudes over time. So basically we provide the polls, okay, and from the polls we get the opinions from the participants at a specific amount of time or over a period of time from the same population. Okay, that is nothing but the trend study, and that's why your correct answer should be 4, because here panel study and trend study both are the types of longitudinal designs, And cross-sectional study is again the another type of descriptive study design. So cross-sectional study is exactly opposite to longitudinal design. So within the cross-sectional design, we study different population or different variety of population at a specific unit amount of time, not a longer period of time. Okay, and that's why the correct answer over here is 4. Okay, now next is, in descriptive research the primary data can be obtained through. So in the descriptive research type, from which methods we can obtain the primary data? So basically students, primary data is the kind of data which is grabbed by first user only. Okay, and this is the data which is there at the first time, and it is called as the primary data. Okay, so we have the different options: observation, direct communication with respondents in one form or another, personal interview, all of the above. So basically students, there are lots of data collection methods in the descriptive research through which we can collect the primary data. So the first data collection method is observation. So basically students, we use observation as a data collection method so that we can obtain the quantitative data. Okay, now the second one is survey. Survey is another data collection method in which we can ask the questions to our participants and participants respond to us. The third one is case study. So within case study design or data collection method, we detailed get information, or we get in-depth information from the participants. Okay, now the fourth data collection method is personal interview. Personal interview is nothing but the face-to-face interview method in which we ask the same questions or to the range of participants, and we get the answers from those participants. Okay, now fifth one is direct communication. Okay, direct communication. So basically students, direct communication is a speech that conveys clear messages or that clearly directs actions. Okay, so students, from these 5 data collection methods, now we can understand the correct answer to this question should be 4, that is all of the above, because here observation is the data collection method, direct communication is another data collection method, and personal interview is third data collection method, and all of these we can use to collect the primary data in the descriptive research. Okay, now next is, what type of statistical data are used in educational research? So within the educational research, what type of statistical data we can use? So basically, can we use descriptive statistical analysis? Can we use inferential statistical analysis? Can we use both of them or none of these? So students, educational research is the type of research in which we need both kind of data, which is qualitative and quantitative. Okay, and that's why when we want to collect the quantitative data, and after that when we want to analyze the quantitative data, then obviously for the analysis thing, we are going to test it through statistical analysis techniques. And there are 2 types of statistical analysis techniques, and from that, one is descriptive statistical analysis and the second one is inferential statistical analysis. Okay, so descriptive statistical analysis is computed to describe characteristics of sample or population in totality. Okay, so basically here we are going to describe characteristics of a sample through the computation. Okay, characteristics of samples. So descriptive statistical analysis includes mean, mode, median, standard deviation, then correlation. Okay, and as well there are another type of dispersion techniques, for example variance. Okay, so all of these are the descriptive statistical analysis. Okay, now inferential statistics, what is that? So basically it is used to draw conclusions or generalizations beyond the sample with known degree of accuracy. So basically descriptive statistical analysis has limitations up to the samples only, but if I want to make the generalizations beyond the samples, then I will use inferential statistical analysis. So basically you can say a parametric test is the inferential statistical analysis, then non-parametric tests are inferential statistical analysis, and we are going to see these parametric and non-parametric tests in the upcoming videos. As well, we are going to see mean, mode, median, standard deviation, correlation, variance in upcoming videos, so don't worry. And that's why the correct answer over here is 3, that is both of them, because here we can use descriptive statistical analysis and inferential statistical analysis both, okay, in educational research. Okay, now next, what does descriptive research include according to Van Dalen? So according to Van Dalen, there are 3 types of studies which are included in descriptive research, and those are: first one is survey studies. So within the survey studies, we are going to ask the questions to the participants and participants respond to us. So in the survey studies, we are going to deliver open-ended questions in which we get the descriptive answers, and as well we include the closed-ended questions from which we get the closed answers. Basically we provide the choices to the open closed-ended questions, and we get the answers from those choices. Okay, now next one is interrelationship studies. So into these studies, basically we rely on both the things, and those are facts and theory. So these theory and facts both are interdependent with each other. So if I want to study on facts, then I will think about theory, or I will study the facts based upon the theory. And if I want to explain the theory, if I want to prove the theory, then I will take help from the facts. Okay, and this is nothing but interrelationship studies. And the third study is developmental studies. So within the developmental studies, as the name suggests, developmental, so we are going to study the development of each and every object. For example, if I want to study the development of an organism in a human being, for example, I want to study the development of a particular organism such as heart, then from a single cell I will see its development, okay, towards a proper heart. So this is nothing but growth of a single cell towards the heart, and this is nothing but development of each and every stage. Okay, and this is nothing but developmental study. So these are the studies which are included in the descriptive research, because these are the studies in which we are going to describe the characteristics of the things. Okay, and that's why the correct answer over here is all of these. Okay, now next is, what new product should be developed is an example of which type of research. Okay, dash. Whether it is causal, whether it is descriptive, whether it is exploratory, whether it is none of the above. So students, if I want to understand, or if I want to get the answer for the question what new product should be developed, then in that situation which kind of research type I need to follow. So causal research type is the research type in which I am going to identify, or I am going to establish the causal relationship between the two variables, such as independent variable and dependent variable, or you can say cause and effect variable. Okay, within the descriptive research study I am going to describe the characteristics whatever there are, and in the exploratory research type I am going to explore the things. It means that I have basic idea about the research, or you can say I don't have that much information about the research study, and that's why I'm going to explore the things. So basically exploratory research type is incorporated so that I will get the answers to the questions why, how and what. So if I want the answer for this question, what new product should be developed, then for this kind of question I will follow exploratory research, because here I will be getting the answer for what. Okay, what. And that's why the correct answer over here is third, that is exploratory research type. Okay. Next is, which of the following would be true regarding exploratory research? So regarding exploratory research, we have given 4 statements, and from these statements we are going to identify true statement relevant to exploratory research. So first is, exploratory research is highly structured. Exploratory research is very formal. Exploratory research determines causality. Exploratory research is both unstructured and informal. As I have told in the previous question that exploratory research is incorporated so that we get the answers to the questions why, how and what. So basically, whenever I have a very basic information about the overall research topic, then I will follow the exploratory research so that I will get information about further research, and I will understand how I am going to deal with further research. Okay, and that's why within the exploratory research I am going to develop the hypothesis. I'm going to develop the hypothesis, and that's why there is no any kind of a rule while doing the exploratory research. As well, I can use unstructured format over here. I can use informal techniques, such as I can use informal data collection methods. As well, exploratory research does not determine causality, because here we are going to develop the hypothesis only, and that's why we can't determine causality between the variables in such kind of research. And that's why the correct answer to this question is 4, because exploratory research is both unstructured because it is not structured, and as well it is informal because here we can use informal data collection methods over here as well, such as we can personally talk with the participants, okay, or such as we can personally go to the areas where I need to find out the data, and that's why informal ways can be followed over here. Okay, and that's why the correct answer over here is 4. So you can understand here that the characteristics of exploratory research are, they are unstructured, they are informal, okay, and that's why the correct answer is 4. In which research type the research design is flexible? Okay, so here again we have given 4 types of research, and in which research the research design is flexible. So whether it is descriptive research, whether it is explanatory research, whether it is exploratory research, pure research. So flexible means there are no any rules. Okay, we can follow any kind of a step, we can follow any kind of informal ways while doing the research. This is called as flexible. So within the descriptive research, whatever incidents, whatever situation or whatever person over there, we are going to describe the characteristics of that thing as there it is. And that's why this is fixed research design. We are going to follow the fixed research design over here. There is no any flexibility. So this option gets eliminated. In the explanatory research design, we are going to explain the relationship between the variables, and that's why whatever relationship over there between the variables, we are going to explain it is as it is, and that's why this is as well the fixed research design. We are going to follow the fixed research design over here, and that's why this is also get eliminated. Within the exploratory research design, as I have told you earlier in this video, this is unstructured, and as well there is no any rule to deal with it, and that's why this is flexible research design. Okay, that's why the correct answer to this question is 3rd. And pure research or fundamental research is the research in which we are going to expand our knowledge, we are going to formulate a principle or theory or law, and that's why this is as well the fixed research design. So this option gets eliminated, and that's why the correct answer is 3, that is exploratory research. Which among the following are possible goals of an exploratory study? So here we have given 4 options A, B, C, D, and in that we have given statements about possible goals of an exploratory study, and we are going to identify those possible goals. So first is discover future research topics, then expand understanding of a topic, test hypothesis, develop hypothesis. So students, until now you have understood that what is exactly exploratory study? And that's where the possible goals of an exploratory study are. First one is, we are going to discover the future research topics. Okay, future research topics, because here we don't have that much information about the future research topic, and that's why within the exploratory study we are going to collect the preliminary data so that we can discover future research feasibility, future research topics. Okay, now next one is expand understanding of a topic. Yes, we can as well expand the understanding of a topic in the exploratory research study, because we don't have that much information about the topic, and that's why we can expand the understanding of a topic by collecting data, and so that we can do the next research procedures based upon exploratory study. And the third goal is that to develop a hypothesis, that I have told you earlier in this video, that we are going to develop the hypothesis in the exploratory study. Okay, so we don't test hypothesis over here. There is no need to test the hypothesis, because there is no any kind of a conclusion over here. We are going to only develop the hypothesis in the exploratory study. We don't test it. Okay, and that's why the correct answer to this question is second, that is A, B, D are correct, because only these are the possible goals of an exploratory study. Okay, next is, in which type of research hypothesis is vague? Vague means not clear or not defined. Okay, so in which research type hypothesis is not defined? So whether it is causal, whether it is descriptive, whether it is exploratory, or none of the above. Now students, all of you understood that only exploratory research design is the type of research design in which research hypothesis is not clear or it is not defined, because in the exploratory research design our final step is to develop the hypothesis. Okay, because priorly we are not able to understand what is the research is about, and that's why here we are going to collect the preliminary data, and finally we are going to develop the hypothesis, and that's why the hypothesis is not vague. Sorry, hypothesis is vague over here, that is, it is not defined. Okay, and in the causal and descriptive research types, hypothesis is clearly defined, and so that we are going to test the hypothesis over here. But in the exploratory research design, we don't test the hypothesis, we only develop it. Okay, because it is not clear, and that's why the correct answer over here is 3. Question 1 is, ethnography does not include. So from these options, which is the option which is not included in the ethnography? So basically students, ethnography is the qualitative research, because within the ethnography method we basically study the culture of a specific community or society. As well we study over here about the behaviors of the participants, how they behave, what are their characteristics within a community, what are the cultures of the community or society. Okay, and that's why in the ethnography we use some methods for the data collection. For example, we use field notes to collect the data regarding a specific a field or specific culture or society. Okay, then second one is that we also use participant observation method. Participant observation is the most used method in ethnography, and in this method basically researcher itself participates in a particular community or society, and researcher lives with the participants, and they do he or she basically do all the activities with the participants, and he or she can study the specific culture of that particular community. Okay, and the third is that value neutrality. As well we use the value neutrality kind of data collection in the ethnography. Okay, and that's why the correct answer to this question is second, that is objective analysis, because there is nothing like we do regarding objective analysis in ethnography. Basically here we do the subjective analysis, because over here we are going to study the behavior, a quality or characteristic or nature of a humans, okay, basically. And that's why here there is only subjective analysis, not an objective analysis, and that's why the correct answer over here is 2, okay. Next is, which one of the following is the main feature of qualitative research, okay. So whether it is avoids positivist assumptions and data analysis, or subscribes to pre-existing categories, or collects data in numerical form, or uses the empirical method of data analysis, okay. So basically students, first of all we need to understand what is exactly positivist approach. What is that? So basically students, step by step I will tell you what is that. So basically a positivistic approach emphasizes quantitative analysis, okay. Basically it emphasizes the quantitative analysis, okay, over the qualitative analysis. Second one is that positivistic approach subscribes to pre-existing categories, okay, subscribes to pre-existing categories. It means that basically you have already a hypothesis, and based on that hypothesis you are going to test that hypothesis, and the meaning of this is that subscribes to pre-existing categories. Now the third characteristic of positivist approach is that it is based upon the empirical evidence, and that's why empirical evidence is gathered and analyzed over here, okay. Empirical evidence means the evidence which is based upon observations and measurements of the data. And the fourth one is, it collects numerical data. It collects numerical data. So after viewing such characteristics, now you can understand that all of these characteristics are of the quantitative research, not qualitative research. Now what are the characteristics of qualitative research, okay. So basically qualitative research believes in interpretivism paradigm, okay. It believes in interpretivism paradigm, okay, and it disregards positivist assumption and statistical data analysis. Basically interpretivism paradigm is based upon our intuitions or our thinking power, okay, not the empirical evidence, okay. And that's why the main feature of qualitative research should be that it should avoid positivist assumptions and data analysis, and it should based upon interpretivism, okay. And that's why the correct answer over here is 1, because avoiding positivist assumptions and data analysis is one of the main feature of qualitative research. And if you observe below 3 options, then you will understand that all of these 3 options are comes under the characteristic of positivist assumptions only, okay. And that's why the correct answer over here is 1, okay. Which of the following are the features of case study method? So whether it is appreciative or particularistic or descriptive or inductive or mechanical. So case study method is again the qualitative method in which we are going to study or basically you can say we are going to study in detail about a specific person for a longer period of time, okay. And that's why case study focuses on a specific case or situation, and that's why it is called as a particularistic approach, okay. Particularistic approach. The second characteristic of case study is that it is descriptive, because here we are going to study in detail about a specific person, and that's why we get the descriptive idea or descriptive characteristics or data of that particular person. The third one is that it is inductive. Inductive means that here we observe the person, we get the opinions from the person, and after that based upon the observations and opinions we are going to make up a theory, and this is called as the inductive approach. Again, case study method is flexible. It means that we can use various data collection methods over here. There is nothing like we will be having a fixed research design. We can use different research designs based upon the situation. Next is that it should have a multiple sources of evidence. Okay, it has multiple sources of evidence. And the sixth one is that it is interpretive. Interpretive means we should interpret our results, or we should interpret the observations that we are getting, okay, at the final stage. And that's why from these characteristics now you will understand that the correct answer to this question is second, that is BCD only, because case study method is particularistic, because it is based upon a specific topic only, and it is actually based upon a single special person and its characteristic. Then it is descriptive, because we are going to study in detail. And as well it is inductive, because here we are going to make up a theory. And that's why the correct answer over here is second, that is BCD only. In which of the following there is greater flexibility in both the methods and process of research? Okay, so whether it is ethnography and phenomenology, whether it is a descriptive survey and impact studies, experimental and observation based studies, ex post facto and historical studies. So students, in today's session we are going to talk about qualitative and quantitative research methods. And qualitative research methods basically based upon the quality or behavior of the specific person. And that's why here we are going to deeply understand the behavior of the persons in a different situations. And that's why within the qualitative research method we use different kinds of data collection methods, and we don't have a fixed research design over here. According to the situation we will design the whole research process, and we are going to do the different data collection methods and data analysis methods. And that's why qualitative research is basically not flexible. Okay, sorry, it is basically flexible. Okay, it is flexible because here we can use any kind of data collection method, any kind of data analysis method. But in the quantitative research exactly opposite happens, because here we already have the hypothesis, or basically here in some cases we are going to formulate the hypothesis and we are going to test that hypothesis by using statistical techniques. And that's why here we have a fixed kind of research design, we don't have a flexibility. And according to different types of research methods, from these research options only ethnography and phenomenology are the types of qualitative research methods, because within the ethnography we are going to study the culture, and within the phenomenology we are going to study the behavior of a person in a different environments, okay, whatever environment they are going to experience. And that's why both of these are the qualitative research methods, and that's why these have a more flexibility in terms of both the methods and process of research. And that's why the correct answer over here is 1. And from these options 2, 3, 4, all of these basically are the types of quantitative research. Okay, quantitative research, because descriptive survey, impact studies, experimental and observation based studies, ex post facto and historical studies, all of these are the types of quantitative research methods, because over here we collect the numerical data and we need to basically test the hypothesis by using the statistical techniques. Okay, and that's why there is no any kind of flexibility while doing the research. Okay, next is which of the following methods is used in empirical researches? Okay, so within empirical researches, which from these methods the method is used? So basically empirical researches means the research approach in which we are going to be having a proper observation and as well a proper measurement of the collected data. And based upon the proper observation and measurement we will be having a strong evidence, and based on this evidence we will be having the results. So this is nothing but the empirical research. Okay, so whether we use inductive method over here, or we are going to use deductive method or initiative method or scientific method. So obviously students, the correct answer to this question is 4, that is scientific method, because a scientific method is the method which we follow everywhere whenever we want to do the research, because within the scientific method there are lots of systematic steps, one by one steps, and we follow those steps whenever we do the research, and these steps basically based upon the empirical approaches, and that's why within the empirical researches scientific method is used. And what are inductive and deductive method? So basically within the inductive method we have the observations, and based upon the observations we will be going to formulate a theory. Okay, and what is the deductive method? So within the deductive method we are going to formulate a hypothesis, we are going to test the hypothesis by using the statistical techniques. Okay, and finally you will get the results and conclusion. So basically whenever you combine the inductive method and deductive method, then it will form the scientific method. Okay, and that's why the correct answer over here is 4. Okay, next is the quantitative research is based on. So from these options, which is the option on which quantitative research is based? So whether it is reductionism, whether it is grounded theory, or field notes, or expansionism. So basically students, what is reductionism? We will see that first of all. So basically reductionism is philosophical approach that seeks to explain complex phenomena by reducing them to their smaller, more fundamental parts. It involves breaking down complex system or concept into its constituent elements or components, with belief that understanding these smaller parts will allow for greater understanding of whole. Okay, so reductionism means that we are going to break down the complex parts into simple parts so that we can easily study them. So in the quantitative research basically we do the same. So in the quantitative research basically whatever problem we have, we are going to convert that problem into the hypothesis, and hypothesis is a straightforward statement, and we are going to test this hypothesis by using the statistical techniques, and after all we will get the results. And that's why here we are going to convert the complex problem into a simple hypothesis. Here basically we are going to do a reductionism, and that's why the correct answer to this question is 1, that is reductionism. And that's why quantitative research is based upon reductionism. Grounded theory is one of the research type of qualitative research, okay, within which we are going to formulate a theory. Field notes is the data collection method which we can use while doing the ethnography. And expansionism means that we are going to convert the simpler things into the complex things, which is exactly the opposite thing, okay, of the thing that quantitative research basically does. And that's why the correct answer over here is 1. Next is, which of the following represent the quantitative research methodology? Whether it is one-to-one interview, or survey research, or focus groups, or correlation research, or descriptive research. Now students, all of you now understood exactly what are the quantitative research methods and what are the qualitative research methods. So from these options, obviously survey research, correlation research, and descriptive research are the quantitative research methodologies, because in these research processes we are going to collect the numerical data, and based upon the numerical data we are going to formulate the hypothesis, and after all we are going to test the hypothesis by using the statistical techniques, and finally we will get the results. But in the one-to-one interview, focus groups, okay, basically we are not going to do such kinds of things, and these are basically the qualitative research methodologies, not quantitative one. And that's why the correct answer to this question is 2nd, that is BDE only. Okay, now next is, which of the below mentioned approaches fall under the quantitative approach? So what is quantitative approach? Approach means what are your perspectives while doing any kind of the thing, or what are the methods that you are going to follow. So whether it is simulation approach or projective technique or inferential approach or depth interview or experimental approach. So again the similar question have been asked over here, like question 7, but only the difference is that over here there is approach and in the last question there was a methodology, but the meaning of both the words are same. Okay, so let us see what is simulation approach first of all. So basically it is a technique that reproduces actual events and processes under test condition, and after all we are going to test such events and processes by using the statistical techniques. And again in this basic approach or simulation approach we are going to use the statistical techniques, and that's why here we are going to use the quantitative approach only. Okay, then next is what? Projective technique. So within the projective technique, a person analyzes his or her behavior or opinions on certain situations, and that's why here we are going to study the characteristics of the human being, how they behave, like that. And that's why here there is a qualitative approach, not quantitative. What is now inferential approach? It means survey research where sample of the population is studied to determine its characteristics, and basis of hypothesis testing with statistical analysis is inference. Inferential approach means we are going to take out the inferences from our hypothesis testing part to the whole population. And again here there is hypothesis, there is testing of hypothesis, and that's why there is quantitative approach. Then depth interview means we are going to do a depth interview with the respondents. So face to face interview, and again here we are going to understand the opinions of the participants, and there is no any kind of statistical analysis or any kind of hypothesis testing part, and that's why here there is qualitative approach. And within the experimental approach we are going to do the experiments in a controlled environment where we are going to manipulate the independent variable and see the effects on the dependent variable. And again there are lots of statistical techniques, lots of hypothesis formulation procedures, hypothesis testing procedures, and again there is quantitative approach. Okay, and that's why the correct answer to this question is one, that is ACE only, because I have told you that simulation approach is quantitative, inferential approach is again quantitative, and experimental approach is again quantitative. And in this question exactly the quantitative approach has been asked to you, not qualitative. And projective techniques and depth interviews, both of these are the qualitative approaches, and that's why the correct answer over here is 1. Okay, which of the following sequences correctly represents the steps of research using a quantitative paradigm? Quantitative paradigm means exactly from which perspective or from which approach you are doing the research by using quantitative methodology. Okay, so in every research there are lots of sequence of steps that we need to follow, and these are nothing but the scientific methods. And within the quantitative paradigm we need to follow such steps, and here these steps have been given, but we have to understand the sequence of correct steps that we need to follow. So whether it is hypothesis framing first, or hypothesis testing, or conclusions and reporting, or establishing a research question, or hypothesis framing or hypothesis testing, then generalization and conclusions and implications of result, problem identification, sample selection, developing a research design and fieldwork, defining a problem, survey of related studies, then sampling, data collection and data analysis. So here you have been asked for a quantitative paradigm, and that's why there is the collection of numerical data first of all, then there is a hypothesis, then again there is a testing of hypothesis, there is statistical analysis. So that's why we need to follow such procedures in the quantitative paradigm, and that's why your correct answer should be second, because here The first step is establishing a research problem, and this thing I have told you earlier that in any kind of a research process, the first step is to identify and establish a research problem. Then your second step should be hypothesis framing, that is formulation of a hypothesis. Then your third step should be hypothesis testing. Then after the testing part, you are going to generalize your results to the target population. Then you will get conclusions, and after all you are going to implicate your results. Okay, and that's why the correct answer should be 2 over here. Next is, through which of the following methods of research cause and effect relationship is focused? So in these research methods, which is the research method in which cause and effect relationship is studied and focused? So whether it is historical method, whether it is experimental method, ex post facto method, or case study method. So now students, all of you understood that in the historical method, basically we are going to study the past events and we are going to predict our future and present based upon the past events. And here there is no any kind of a cause and effect relationship that we are going to study. Okay, that's why this option is eliminated. In the experimental method, we are going to do the study in a controlled environment. We are going to assess the relationship between the variables, that is independent and dependent, and for that we are going to manipulate the independent variable and we are going to see their effects on the dependent variable. And that's why in the experimental method only you are going to focus upon the cause and effect relationship between the variables, because here you are going to test their relationship, whether there is relationship any over there or not. And that's why the correct answer to this question is second, that is experimental method. Within the ex post facto method, we are going to study the causes of the event which is already happened in the recent past. Again here you are going to see the relationship between cause and effect variables, but here you can't manipulate the variables. The variables are not in your control because the incidence is occurred in the recent past. Okay, and that's why here your focus is not upon cause and effect relationship only, but on the other things as well. Then within the case study method, you are going to study detailed about a particular person regarding its specific characteristic for a longer period of time. And that's why here there is no any kind of a relationship is focused as in terms of cause and effect relationship, and that's why this is eliminated. Ex post facto method eliminated. That's why the correct answer is 2. Question 1 is, which of the following does not correspond to characteristics of research? So here we have given some characteristics of research, and from these 4 options there is one option which is not a characteristic of research, and we are going to select that option. So let us see. Research is not passive, research is systematic, research is not a problem oriented, research is not a process. So basically students, research means we are going to solve any kind of a problem, okay, through a systematic procedure. So basically within the research we are going to follow a proper scientific method, and that's why research is not passive. Basically research is active, okay, because whatever we are doing over here is through our active mode, and here we want the empirical evidence. I mean to say, we based upon on the observations, and then after that subsequent measurements, and then we finally get the results of our research problem. And that's why research is not passive, and that's why this is active, and that's why this is one of the characteristic of research. And research is always systematic. It means that we properly follow step by step in the research process, and these steps are nothing but overall scientific method, and that's why research is always systematic, which is again the characteristic of a research. Research is not a problem oriented. It means that research is solution oriented, because we already have the problem and we need to solve that problem, and for that process we need a research. Okay, and that's why research is basically solution oriented, it is not a problem oriented, and that's why again this is a characteristic of research. Research is not a process. As I have told you earlier that research is always a process, because it's a long lasting procedure in which lots of steps are there, and we are going to see these steps in the next upcoming videos. So basically students, research is always a process which is a systematic process, and that's why the correct answer to this question is 4, because research is not a process, is not a characteristics of research. Okay, that's why this is the correct answer for this question. A research problem is feasible only when. So when the research problem is feasible, what are these conditions? After that only we think that research problem is feasible. So let us see the options. It has utility and relevance. It means that research problem should have a utility. It means that it should be useful for our future generation. Okay, it should have relevance. It means that research problem should have the relevance to the problems within the society. Whatever there are problems within the society, okay, these problems should be our research problem. So it means that research problem has some kind of relationship with the society, okay, or specifically problems in the society. So after that only we can say that research problem is feasible. So this is the option when we can say that research problem is feasible. It is new and adds something to knowledge. Yes, research problem should be new, okay, and it should be original always, and research problem should add something to our existing knowledge. Okay, and after that only we say that research problem is feasible. Research is researchable. It is really the most important concept. If somehow the research problem is not researchable, then obviously you cannot do the research further, and that's why research problem should be researchable, and after that it will be feasible. Okay, so this is another option when the research problem is feasible, and that's why the correct answer to this question is 4, that is all of the above, because in all of these above situations research problem is feasible. Okay, authenticity of a research finding is its. So what is the authenticity of a research finding? Okay, so basically students, authenticity means that we have the proper proof that this particular object or thing is authenticate, it is original, it is not copied from somewhere else. Okay, this is called as the authenticity. And what is exactly the authenticity of a research finding? It means that whenever we get the results of our research, so how you can say that our research results are authenticate. So whether it is its validity or its objectivity or originality or all of the above. So this question is somehow tricky students. So let us see how. So basically students, validity means that to what extent, okay, to what extent your results are are that much true, so that you can generalize your results to the other situations. It means that validity comes in two concepts, and it means internal validity and external validity. So within the internal validity, okay, we define it as the data that we use in our research, okay, how that data is valid, okay, or how that data is extendable to valid to our research results. And within the external validity, it means that how or too much, or how too much extent, okay, our results of the research we can generalize to the other situations. Okay, to what extent basically we can generalize the results of our research to the other situations. So exactly the meaning of validity, what is that? Now I hope so all of you understood, and that's why validity is not the authenticity of a research finding. Okay, now next is objectivity. Objectivity means bias free. Okay, whatever you are doing is fairly, and you have a proper objective behind it. Okay, and this is the authenticity of a research finding. Okay, so whenever you have a objectivity in your research process, then ultimately you will include the validity into it, and that's why validity is the somehow the concept which is under the concept of objectivity, and that's why authenticity of a research finding is its objectivity, and that's why the correct answer to this question is 2. Okay, now what is originality? So again, originality means that it is original, it is not duplicate, it is not like we have copied it from somewhere else. So again, originality, this is the concept which comes under objectivity, because objectivity is a bigger concept. Okay, and it includes validity and as well originality, and that's why the correct answer to this question is objectivity, not all of the above. Because you can give the authenticity of a research finding in terms of its objectivity, not its validity, and not its originality. Okay, all of you getting? I hope all of you understood, but still if you have any doubts, you can ask me in the comment box. Okay, now here students, we have given two sets, set 1 and set 2, and in set 1 they have given us research types, and in set 2 they have given characteristics of each research type, and here we have to match the correct characteristics to the correct research type. Okay, now here there are fundamental research, then applied research, action research, evaluative research. So these are basically the types of research which we have given in set 1. Now let us see what are the characteristics that they have given us. Finding out the extent of perceived impact of an intervention. Okay, it means that whenever you get the effects, okay, of your research, then how the causes, okay, how the causes, okay, causing that much amount of effect. So whenever there is increase in cause, then how much effect it will be having, or whenever you decrease the cause, then how much effect you will be having. So this is the meaning of this first statement. Okay, developing an effective explanation through theory building. So basically here you are going to develop a theory, and whenever you are developing the theory, then through this process you are going to provide an effective explanation of your research results. Okay, improving an existing situation through use of interventions. So here whatever existing situation in front of you, so you are going to only improve that existing situation through the use of different actions, and those actions are nothing but the interventions. Okay, exploring the possibility of a theory for use in various situations. It means that whenever you are doing any research process to solve any research problem, then in that situation you are going to apply some theory or principle or laws, so that you will get easily the results of your research. Okay, and enriching technological resources. So basically students, fundamental research is the basic research or pure research. So within the fundamental research we formulate a theory. So this is the main objective of fundamental research, to formulate a theory. And whenever here we formulate the theory, in that case we basically tell the effective explanation behind it, that what we are formulating, why we are formulating a theory. Okay, and that's why fundamental research is basically goes for, okay, second option, developing an effective explanation through theory building, because here there is only one option in which we are building a theory. It means that we are formulating a theory, and that's why fundamental research goes for second option. Within the applied research we basically apply the various principles, laws or theories to the problems whatever we are solving. Okay, and that's where applied research will go for fourth option, exploring the possibility of a theory for use in various situations. Next is action research. So within the action research, we solve the existing problems, okay, through our interventions or through our through our immediate actions upon it. And that's why C will go for third option, improving an existing situation through use of interventions. And the last one is evaluative research. So of course it will go for 1, because we are evaluating something. Okay, so here we are evaluating exactly how much extent of causes having the that much extent of effect on the effects. Okay, and that's why D will go for first, that is finding out the extent of perceived impact of an intervention. I know the language is somehow difficult to understand, but try to understand the meaning of that sentence, then after that you will understand everything. And enriching technological resources, so this thing basically does not occur in any kind of research type. And whenever we want to enrich the technological resources, this is basically, you can say, whenever we collect any data for a research, so this thing will comes under that. Okay, that's why this option is not associated with any kind of research type, and that's why this gets eliminated. Okay, so the correct answer should be 1, because here A will go for 2, B will go for 4, C will go for 3, and D will go for 1. Okay. Next is, which one among the following statements is correct in context to research? So here we have given 4 statements which are relevant to research, and we are going to find out the correct statements which are relevant to research. So now let us see one by one these statements. Research refers to a series of systematic activity or activities undertaken to find out the solution to a problem. So this is really very easiest, and we have saw lot of times that what is exactly research. So research is a systematic activity, because here we follow the scientific procedure and we do the research because we want the solution to our problem, and that's why the first statement is correct in context to research. Now second is, it is a systematic, logical and unbiased process wherein verification of hypothesis, data analysis, interpretation and formation of principles can be done. Yes, this is as well the correct statement in regards to research, because research is always systematic, it is logical, because here we think logically. As well, this is unbiased. Unbiased means whatever we do here which is fairly. And as well, here we basically verify the hypothesis that we have created, we do the data analysis, we interpret the data, and as well we form here different kinds of principles as well. Okay. Now third one is, it is an intellectual inquiry or quest towards truth. Yes, research is an intellectual inquiry towards the truth. This is correct statement regarding research. And it enhances knowledge. Yes, through the research we are going to enhance our knowledge, because we do lot of things whenever we are under doing the research, and that's why this is also correct. So the correct answer to this question is 1, because here all of these statements are correct in regard to research. Okay, research problem is selected from the standpoint of. So from whose standpoint of we should select the research problem? So first is social relevance. Social relevance means whatever there are the problems within the society. So through the standpoint of that problems in the society, we should select the research problem, or through the financial support, or through the researchers' interest or availability of relevant literature. So students, the correct answer to this question should be 1, because we do the research, okay, because we need to solve the problems which are there in the society. Okay, I know researchers' interest is as well more important thing, but apart from researchers' interest, the most important thing is that social relevance. Okay, so whenever we have a social relevance to the research problem, then the research problem is feasible, and that we have seen in this video. okay, earlier. And that's why we should select the research problem through the standpoint of social relevance and not researchers' interest. Okay, so we should give a priority to the social relevance than the researcher's interest. So the correct answer should be 1. Next is, what are those conditions where a research problem is not viable? So what are those conditions in which research problem is not viable? So first is, it is new and adds something to knowledge. Yes, in this situation research problem is viable, so this is eliminated. It can be researched, it means that it should be researchable, so this is as well eliminated, because under these situations research problem is actually viable. But we have asked that whenever it is not viable. Okay, it has utility and relevance. Yes, under this situation as well it is viable, so this is eliminated. It contains dependent and independent variables. Yes, so under this situation research problem is not viable. Okay, and that's why the correct answer to this question is 4. Okay, which one among the following phrases does not correspond to the meaning of research as a process? So from these options, which is the phrase which does not correspond to the meaning of research as a process? So whether it is problem solving, whether it is trial and error, or objective observation, or systematic activity. So problem solving is basically a whole process in which we solve the problem through different steps, and that's why this is nothing but a process, and problem solving correspond to the meaning of research as a process, so this option gets eliminated. Trial and error means here we repetitively do the experiments. Okay, it means that we do the trials and after that we get the errors, then whenever we get the errors then again we repeat the same experiment, and this is nothing but a process. Okay, this is nothing but a process, or you can say it's a method, and that's why this is again the meaning of research as a process, so this gets eliminated. Now objective observation is the data collection method, and in which we fairly observe the participants. Okay, and that's why this is not a process, this is not a process, this is the data collection method, and that's why this is the correct answer to this question, because it is not correspond to the meaning of research as a process. Okay, so objective observation is the part of a research process. Okay, it is not a whole research process, and that's why the correct answer to this question is 3. And now systematic activity, obviously through this word you can understand that this is a whole process and it corresponds to the meaning of research as a whole process, so this is again eliminated, and that's why the correct answer is 3. Which of the following is not a characteristic feature of research process? So again here you have given 4 options, and from these 4 options, which is a characteristic, which is not a characteristic feature of research process? So whether it is empirical approach, systematic endeavor, uncontrolled conditions, critical analysis. So empirical approach means empirical method. It means that here we observe the data, and based upon the observations we measure the data, and after that we get the results. So here we have the proper evidence in terms of observations and measurements. This is nothing but the empirical method, and obviously within the research process we follow the empirical method. This is the one of the characteristic of research process, so this option gets eliminated. Systematic endeavor means systematic process, and as we have seen earlier in this video, research process is a systematic procedure in which we follow different steps in a sequentially manner, and as well it is a scientific method. So this is again the characteristic of research process, so this gets eliminated. Uncontrolled conditions, yes, so within the research process we have the controlled conditions, because under these controlled conditions we can manually manipulate the independent variables, and we get the effects on the dependent variables, and for that thing we need the controlled conditions for our variables under study. Okay, and that's why this is not a characteristic of research process, because a research process has the controlled conditions. Okay, so uncontrolled conditions is not a characteristic feature of research process. So this is the correct answer to this question. And now critical analysis is again one of the characteristic of research process, because whenever we get the data and after that we need to analyze our data. So this is basically the critical analysis technique. Okay, we critically analyze the data so that we get the authenticate results to our research, and that's why this is again the characteristic of research process. So it gets eliminated. So the correct answer is 3. Next is, which of the following sequences correctly reflects scientific investigation? Okay, so here we have given different options, and in each option they have given us different sequences, but we need to identify correct sequence of scientific investigation. So let us see: conceptualization, theorizing, deduced consequences, then observation and testing, testing, observation, conceptualization, theorizing and deduced consequences, theorizing, deducing consequences, testing, observing and conceptualization, observation, conceptualization, theorizing, deduced consequences and method to verify them. So basically students, first of all, within the scientific investigation, the first thing that we need to do is observation, because through the observation only we can identify the research problem in the society or the research problem in front of us, and that's why your first step should be observation. So from these options, only the fourth option is that in which first step is observation, and that's why your correct answer should be 4. And after that you do the conceptualization. It means that based upon the observation you collect the data, and whatever data you have, so based upon that data you try to making the concepts behind it, and after that you develop a theory. Then deduced consequences means whenever you develop a theory, after that you make up hypothesis, then you test the hypothesis, and finally you get the results. So this is nothing but deduced consequences, and after that there is a method to verify them. So for the verification thing, we basically test the hypothesis through different statistical techniques. Okay, so this is the sequence method of scientific investigation, and the correct answer is 4. Okay, question 1 is, what is the name of the conceptual framework in which the research is carried out? Okay, so what is the name of that conceptual framework? Through that conceptual framework, basically the research is carried out. So whether it is research hypothesis, or it is a synopsis of research, or it is research paradigm, or it is research design. So basically conceptual framework means the whole outline of the whole research process, which is nothing but the research design, and that's why your correct answer should be 4, because research design is the whole outline of your whole research process, in which you basically explain what are different research data collection methods and data analysis methods you are going to employ in your whole research process. Okay, and that's why your correct answer should be 4. Now the research hypothesis means the prediction of the solution of your research. Synopsis of research means the summary of your whole research in minimum words, so you can call it as abstract as well. Okay, then research paradigm means research approach, and research approach is nothing but the research method itself. Okay, next is, which one among the following statement is true in the context of the testing of hypothesis? Okay, so among these options, which is the statement which is true in relevant or in regard towards the testing of hypothesis? So it is only the alternative hypothesis that can be tested. So whenever we test the hypothesis, then at that time we only test the alternative hypothesis. It is only the null hypothesis that can be tested. So whenever we test the hypothesis, then there is only the null hypothesis that we test. Both the alternative and the null hypothesis can be tested. Both the alternative and the null hypothesis cannot be tested. So basically students, this thing is really most important. Whenever you test the hypothesis, then in that section basically you only test the null hypothesis. Okay, because the meaning of null hypothesis is that we basically state that there is no relationship between the variables under study, and that's why we test only the null hypothesis. And whenever we get the results, and whenever we get the results like we should accept the null hypothesis, then in that situation we accept it. And whenever we reject the null hypothesis, then in that situation we automatically accept the alternative hypothesis. Okay, and that's why your correct answer should be 2, that is, it is only the null hypothesis that can be tested. Okay, next is, in using the hypothetico-deductive research paradigm, which of the following sequences is considered appropriate? Okay, so whenever you are using hypothetico-deductive research approach, then for that using the approach you need to go through simple steps. Okay, those are the research steps. So what are the sequences of these research steps? So first is hypothesis making, hypothesis testing, arriving at generalization and conclusion, establishing a research problem, hypothesis making, hypothesis testing, arriving at generalization and conclusion, hypothesis making, establishing a research problem, then hypothesis testing, then arriving at generalization and conclusion. Hypothesis testing, hypothesis making, finalizing the problem, arriving at generalization and conclusion. Okay, so your correct answer should be 2, because whenever you do any kind of a research, then your first step should be to establish a research problem. Okay, and that's why basically you need to identify first of all the research problem, then establish a research problem, then after that formulate a hypothesis, then test a hypothesis, then arrive at generalization, and last session will be of conclusion. Okay, so basically what the meaning of hypothetical deductive research paradigm? So basically in this research paradigm you can see these two words, and those are hypothetical and deductive. So hypothetical means basically you are going to formulate the hypothesis, and deductive means you are going to test the hypothesis. So this is the meaning of these two sentence words. Okay, and that's why in this basic research paradigm you need to first of all formulate the hypothesis, which is the mandatory thing, and the second thing is that deductive means basically you are going to test the hypothesis. That's why your correct answer should be 2, that is this one. Okay, a college or university teacher plans to test his or her substantive research hypothesis in a major project. Which of the following statements are considered relevant in this regard? Okay, so college or university teacher, okay, is planning to test his or her substantive research hypothesis. Okay, so basically here he wants to test substantive research hypothesis, and research hypothesis means alternative hypothesis. So in this hypothesis we state that, or we predict that there is relationship between the variables. Okay, so with regard to this hypothesis testing part, okay, which of these following statements are correct? Substantive research hypothesis has to clearly specify the relationship among variables. Okay, so basically whenever we formulate the substantive research hypothesis, then that research hypothesis should clearly specify the relationship among the variables those are under study, and this statement is correct, because whenever we know the exactly relationship among the variables, then obviously our research hypothesis will be more clear, and it will help us to specifically test it. Okay, second is research hypothesis may be directed at finding out differential effects or relationships. Okay, research hypothesis may be directed at finding out differential effects or relationships. Okay, again this statement is correct, because research hypothesis should be directed at finding out differential effects or relationships, because this is basically the outcome of our research process, and that we want basically, and this is the goal of our whole research. null hypothesis should be formulated beforehand. So here we are going to test the research hypothesis, and that's why beforehand we don't need to formulate a null hypothesis. So this statement is incorrect. There is direct support available for testing the substantive research hypothesis. No, basically this thing does not happen in the research process, because whenever there is direct support available for testing the substantive research hypothesis, then this thing comes under unethical research process, and that's why this statement is again incorrect. The final decision of the on the research hypothesis may be reached indirectly by deciding the fate of the null hypothesis. Yes, this statement is correct, because whenever you reject the null hypothesis, then obviously automatically you accept the research hypothesis. Okay, and whenever you accept the null hypothesis, then you reject the research hypothesis, and that's why indirectly your decision will be based upon the fate of the null hypothesis itself. That's why your correct answer should be 4, that is A, B and E only, because here only these statements are correct. Next is research problem is feasible only when. So in which situations research problem is feasible? So when it is researchable, when it is new and adds something to knowledge, when it has utility and relevance, and all of these. So basically students, research problem is feasible only when it is researchable. Whenever it is researchable, then obviously it will be feasible. When it new and whenever it adds something to knowledge, then obviously it will be feasible. And as well, whenever it has utility and relevance, relevance means whenever it has relevance to the problems in the society, then obviously it will be feasible. And that's why in all of these situations research problem is feasible, and that's why your correct answer should be 4, that is all of these. Okay, from the list given below, identify those which are called non-probability sampling procedures. Okay, so here we have given a different sampling procedures, and we need to identify which are the non-probability sampling procedures among these procedures. So basically there are two types of sampling procedures, and those are probability and non-probability sampling procedures. And probability sampling procedures means there we basically randomly assign the participants and randomly select the participants. But in the non-probability sampling procedures, we do not randomly select the participants. So here we do not randomly select the participants. Okay, so let us see here different sampling procedures: simple random sampling, dimensional sampling, snowball sampling, cluster sampling, quota sampling, stratified sampling. So from these sampling procedures, dimensional sampling, snowball sampling and quota sampling are the non-probability sampling procedures. Okay, because within the dimensional sampling, this is the extension of quota sampling, and here a participant are get selected because they have the those particular characteristics, and here researcher think about many characteristics such as gender, then age, etc. And here basically researcher select the participants based upon the different characteristics, and each participant should have those defined characteristics, and those are called as dimensional sampling, because here the characteristics are many but the participant is one. Okay, and that's why this is the extension of quota sampling. In the snowball sampling, a researcher inspires the participants which are already under study, okay, to ask the other participants, okay, to get into the study. So basically here a researcher ask the participants under study to invite their colleagues or their familiar people to get participated in the study. So this is called as the snowball sampling. And within the quota sampling, basically a researcher wants the specific people who has specific characteristics, and that's why those of these three are the non-probability sampling procedures, but here simple random sampling, then cluster sampling and stratified sampling, these are the probability sampling procedures, and that's why your correct answer should be 4, that is 2, 3 and 5. Okay, next is research design that needs to collect factual information on a continuing basis is classified as. Okay, so from these options, which is the research design that needs to collect factual information on a continuing basis? So whether it is longitudinal study design or pre and post study design, cross sectional study design or double control study design. So within this, the longitudinal study design is the study design that needs to collect factual information on a continuing basis, and that's why it should be your correct answer. Because in the longitudinal study design, okay, basically participants are to be called for a particular time interval, and that time interval is for a longer period of time or shorter period of time. It depends upon the study criteria, and on a interval basis, participants give the real information at that period of time to the researcher on a continuing basis. Okay, and that's why the correct answer to this question is longitudinal study design. In the pre and post study design, so basically over here, before and after treatments, the measurements are to be taken. Okay, and that's why it is called as the pre and post study design. Cross sectional study design is the study design in which a researcher takes the information from lots of participants at a one period of time. Okay, and in the double control study design, here there are two control groups and one experimental groups. Okay, and that's why it is called as the double control study design, and the correct answer is 1, that is longitudinal study design. A researcher intends to find out the differences in the motivational outcome or outlook of first degree level students in terms of their belongingness to rural or urban areas and the educational status of parents. What will be the dependent variable in this study? Okay, so here researcher intends to find out the differences in the motivational outlook of first degree level students based on their belongingness to either rural or urban areas and based on the educational status of their parents. So here basically a researcher wants to study the motivational outlook of first degree level students, and that's why here motivational outlook should be the dependent variable, because the variable which is under study or the effect variable over here is motivational outlook, and the independent variables are belongingness to rural or urban areas and educational status of their parents. Okay, and that's why here your correct answer should be 4, that is motivational outcome or motivational outlook, because dependent variable is the effect variable and it is basically depend upon the independent variables. So whenever we change the values of the independent variables, then automatically the values of the dependent variable will be changed. Okay, that's why your correct answer should be 4, that is motivational outlook. Next is the objective of exploring the existing literature should be to identify which of the following issues. Okay, so what is the objective of literature basically? Why we do the review of literature? So what is already known about this area, then what concepts and theories are relevant to this area, how to get funding for the research, what are the significant controversies in this area, then are there any inconsistencies in the findings of this area. So basically to reviewing the existing literature means we find out the theory or we find out the articles which are there published by other authors or other researchers before me or before us. Okay, and these literatures help us to understand the study, okay, whatever we are studying right now, and that's why we should know what is already known about this area, and that's why we review the existing literature as well. What concepts and theories are relevant to this area, we need to know that. So again this is again the objective of this. Then what are the significant controversies in this area? We should know that. So for that again we do the review of existing literature, and again we need to know whether there are any inconsistencies, means whether there are any gaps in the findings of this area or not, and that's why we do the review of existing literature, and that's why your correct answer over here should be 3, that is A, B, D and E only. Okay. Next is, which of the following sampling techniques in research imply randomization and equal probability of drawing the units? So here they have asked you, from these sampling techniques, which is the sampling technique which has equal probability of getting selected to the all the participants. So basically all the participants have the equal probability to get selected in the study. So basically here we use the randomization formula to select the different participants to the study. So whether it is quota sampling, whether it is snowball sampling, whether it is stratified sampling, or whether it is dimensional sampling or cluster sampling. So here the probability sampling procedures are stratified and cluster sampling. As we have seen in this video only, ki quota, snowball and sampling, all of these are the non-probability sampling. Okay, and that's why the remaining options will be stratified and cluster sampling, and those are the probability sampling techniques, and that's why your correct answer should be C and E only. Okay, C and E only, stratified and cluster sampling. Okay. Question 1 is, dash includes data concerning the family background and educational development. So from these options, which is the research method or which is the data collection method which includes data which is relevant to the family background and educational development? So we have here different options: case study, general behavior, genetic approach and adequacy. So students, if you have seen all of these options, then you will understand that here only case study is the research method or it is the data collection method, and general behavior, genetic approach and adequacy, all of these are not any kind of a data collection method in research. Okay, so all of these options gets eliminated, and that's why your correct answer is case study. Okay, here it is very easy to understand the answer to this question because of the options are really very easy. But there is concept behind this, and this is that case study is a qualitative research method, and basically it involves in-depth study of single case from various angles. Okay, and data sources includes data regarding family and educational background mostly, and primary data collection methods are observation and conducting interviews over here. Okay, so this is nothing but the case study and the information about it, and that's why case study includes data which is relevant to the family background and educational development. Okay, which one of the following is a type of self-reporting technique? So from these options, which is the type of self-reporting technique? And we have the options: field analysis, questionnaire, case study, focus groups. So let us see first of all what is self-reporting technique. So basically students, self-reporting techniques of data collection uses surveys, questionnaires or polls where respondents read question and select a response by themselves without any interference from investigator. So basically self-reporting technique of data collection uses surveys, questionnaires and polls as the method of data collection, and that's why your correct answer over here should be questionnaire, because questionnaire is a type of self-reporting technique. Okay, and all of the other options like field analysis, case study and focus groups are the data collection methods, but they are not type of self-reporting technique, because within the field analysis basically researcher wants to understand the human behavior in their natural environment. Okay, in the case study, as we have seen earlier in this video, we are going to study in-depth information of a single person only, and within the focus groups there is a homogeneous groups and which has the participants which has the common characteristics. Okay, and that's why here your correct answer should be 2. Next is The techniques by which we can study an individual's personality by observing his or her style of life, behavior, manner, thoughts and feelings is called. So from these options, which is the technique by which we can study individual's personality by observing his or her style of life, by observing his or her style of behavior or his or her style of manner, thoughts and feelings. Okay, so whether the technique is inventory or case history or rating scale or projective. Okay, so the correct answer to this question is 2, because the correct answer is case history. So case history includes all relevant information or material, okay, which is gathered about individual, family, group, etc. And the common type of information included in case history are like basic statistical data such as gender, sex, name, like that. Okay, so basic data it includes, as well it includes clients history of services, as well it includes investigation which is pertaining to client's case, it includes investigation outcomes, it includes past and present treatments and or counseling sessions, then history of illnesses, complaints and their resolution, referrals, etc. Okay, and that's why here your correct answer should be 2, which is case history. And the other options such as inventory, rating scale, projective, okay, these are as well the techniques, but these are the techniques by which we can't study individual's personality by observation. Okay, and that's why the correct answer is 2, that is case history. Okay, next is name the method by which which deals with only one person at a time and promotes his adjustment. So from these methods, which is the method which deals with only one person at a single time, and also this method promotes his adjustment. So whether it is case study, whether it is questionnaire or clinical method or experimental method. So obviously students, now all of you understood that your correct answer over here should be case study. As we have seen earlier in this video, within the case study we are going to study in detail information about a single person at a time. Okay, and that's why case study is the method which deals with only one person at a time, and also case study promotes that person's adjustment. I mean to say, according to that person's adjustment, researcher basically do the study. Okay, as we all of we know that what is questionnaire. So basically questionnaire is a self-reporting technique in which researcher asks the questions to the respondents and respondents themselves gives the answers to the researcher. Okay, within the clinical method, so basically this is the method which is used in clinical areas such as within the laboratory or within the diagnostic labs. Okay, and in the clinical method maybe a researcher can do a study on a single person, and as well maybe a researcher can do a study on a group of people, okay, which has the common characteristics. Fine. And within the experimental method, researcher can study the relationship between the variables, as well researcher controls the variables in the experimental method, and here researcher statistically tests the hypothesis. Okay, so lots of things can be done within the experimental method, but your correct answer over here is case study. Okay, a researcher wants to study the association between gender and using a mobile phone. Data collected for this study will be. So here researcher wants to study exactly what is the association or relationship between the gender and using a mobile phone. I mean to say how much amount of gender, okay, using a specific mobile phone. For example, how many there are the number of female candidates who are using a mobile phone, and how many there are number of male candidates who are using a mobile phone, and researcher here wants to study that association. Okay, So here for that purpose, what kind of data researcher will collect? So whether researcher will collect quantitative data or qualitative data, continuous data or classified data. So mainly students, there are two types of data within the research, and those are quantitative and qualitative data. So quantitative data, as the name suggests, it represents the numerical data basically, because here we give the particular values to the data sets, and we can measure here the data, okay, through those values. But within the qualitative data, we don't give the values to the data sets, and as well here the data is in the picture or word format, okay. And over here researcher will collect the qualitative data, because here researcher wants to understand exactly the association between gender and using a mobile phone, right? And that's why here he will collect the qualitative data, which includes lots of experiences, behaviors of each gender towards the mobile phone. Okay, so only quantitative data over here is not sufficient to study whole thing, and that's why here researcher will collect the qualitative data mainly. Okay, and that's why your correct answer should be 2. Arrange the following stages of processing of data in a correct sequence. So over here we have given some stages of processing of data, and we have to arrange these stages in a correct sequence. So let us see what are these stages: coding, editing, tabulation, classification, using percentages. So basically students, whenever we collect the data, so after that we need to process that data for our further processes in our research. Okay, so in that case your first stage of processing of data will be editing. Okay, editing. So within the editing part, basically we remove the unambiguous data or the data which is unclear, and as well whenever there is a wrong information within the data, so we remove it. Okay, this is called as the editing part of the data. Then second is coding. So within the coding part we give a particular kind of a symbol to the data so that we can identify the data. Third one is classification. So after that we classify the data according to whether it has numerical value or not, or whether the data is in picture or word format, according to, okay, that. Then next is we tabularize the data. Basically whenever we have a data set, then we categorize the data in the tabular format so that it will be easier for all of us to understand the data, and as well we can easily mention the data in the tables easily. Okay, and the last one is using percentages. So whatever data we have tabularized, so basically we represent that data using the percentages. So by showing the data by using the percentages will be easier for the readers to understand exactly what amount of data is available. Okay, and that's why your correct answer should be 4, which is BADCE, because over here B editing will be your first stage, coding will be your second stage, classification will be your third, tabulation fourth, and using percentages will be fifth stage. Okay, which one of the following stages of the marketing research process is most expensive? So over here we have mentioned that different stages of the marketing research process, and from these stages which is the most expensive stage, whether it is data analysis, whether it is data collection, or whether it is developing the research plan or report writing. So all of we know that what is exactly the marketing research process. As the name suggests, it is a marketing research process. So in this research process basically we study the trends in the market. Okay, whatever there is trending in the market, and we study on that. And that's why over here the most expensive stage in the marketing research is data collection, because over here we need lots of data from the lots of amount of people, because here we are going to study regarding marketing trends. Okay, and that's why to collect the data we need a lot of funding. Okay, and as well here data collection requires lots of time as well. Okay, and that's a data collection process over here is most expensive. Okay, which data is cheaper to collect? Now which data is cheaper to collect, whether it is primary data, secondary data, new data, or collective data? Now within the research methodology, again there are two types of data, and those are primary and secondary data. So primary data is the data which is created and used by the first user. Okay, and this is the primary data because here first user collects or creates the data as the at the place where it is originally creates. All of you getting? And secondary data is the data which is created by the third persons or second user, basically second user or third person. So for example, secondary data is the data which is available on the internet, which is available through the texts. Okay, so this is called as the secondary data. But primary data is the data that first user collects through the interviews, questionnaires. All of you getting? And that's why here secondary data is cheaper to collect than the primary data, because within the primary data collection method, researcher has to take some kind of an activity such as interviews, such as surveys or questionnaires. But within the secondary data, a person need to only collect the data from the internet, from the persons, like that. Okay, so here secondary data collection method does not require any kind of that much amount of funding, but primary data collection method requires lots of funding. Okay, and that's why your correct answer should be 2. Next is, a researcher is interested in studying the prospects of a particular political party in an urban area. So what tool should he prefer for the study? So now over here researcher is interested to study the prospects, okay, of a specific political party in an urban area. So for that he needs to collect the data. Okay, so for the data collection, what kind of data collection tool he will use? So whether he will use rating scale or interview or questionnaire or schedule. So students, now here researcher wants to study the prospects of a political party in an urban area. So here there is an urban area, and as well there is nothing like work which is done by a political party. Okay, and by taking consideration all of these things, we can understand that urban area is the area which includes a lot of population, and as well there is lot of population, so researcher can't takes interview, right? So interview option gets eliminated because it will take lots of time for the researcher. Okay, and urban area includes the people who are majorly literate, they are literate, right? And that's why they can answer to the questions whatever researcher asked to them through the online media such as internet, email, like that. Okay, and that's why over here researcher will follow the questionnaire tool. Okay, because it will be easier to researcher, okay, to collect the data through the questionnaire tool. Okay, and here researcher can't use rating scale because rating scale can be operated when there is some kind of work which is already done by a political party. But over here they have not mentioned us that a work has been done by a political party in an urban area, and that's why over here researcher can't use rating scale, but he can use questionnaire. And schedule can't be used because schedule is the technique in which researcher itself fill up the questionnaire. Okay, but over here researcher wants the opinions of the people from an urban area, right? And that's why he wants specific the responses from the people, and that's why to get the responses from the people itself he will use questionnaire, not schedule. Okay. Next is, which of the following is not the method of research? Now, from these options, which is not the method of research, whether it is survey, historical, observation, philosophical. Now students, we need to understand exactly what is the method of research. So research method basically comprises of strategies, okay, strategies, then processes or techniques, that are being utilized to collect data or evidence so as to reveal new information or create better understanding of topic. Okay, and that's why whenever we see this concept of method of research, then you will understand that survey is the method of research, historical is again the method of research, observation is again the method of research, but philosophical is not the method of research, and that's why your correct answer should be 4, because within the survey we can ask the questions to the respondents and respondents give us the answers. Within the historical method of research, basically we can collect the data from the past. Basically we can collect the data through the people in the past, we can collect the data through the pictures or videos which are recorded. And as well, observation is the mostly used data collection method in the research, okay, in different kinds of research types, right? And within the observation, researcher can use somehow strategies or techniques such as participant observation is some of the strategy, non-participant observation is another strategy, okay. And that's why all of these are the methods of research, but philosophical is not the method of research, and that's why your correct answer should be 4. Question 1 is, suppose a researcher tests the null hypothesis through two-tailed test and another researcher tests directional hypothesis through one-tailed test, the difference is in. So basically in this question they have asked us that exactly what is the difference between two-tailed test and one-tailed test in regard to the testing part of null hypothesis and directional hypothesis respectively. So basically students, in one-tailed test there is only one end for alternative hypothesis, okay, and that's why it is called as the directional hypothesis, okay. But for two-tailed test it has two ends, okay, both the ends, that, and those are left and right ends, okay. And that's why there are lots of differences in the testing part of two-tailed test and one-tailed test, and those are differences in statistical formula, because these are the two different tests, and that's why we need to use different statistical formula. Again, the level of significance is different, and as well the table value that we use for testing significance is different. So basically all of we know that what is the table value. So basically there is a table which is called as the T distribution table, okay, and that table is for both two-tailed test and one-tailed test, and the values are different for two-tailed test and one-tailed test in the table, and we need to use those values for testing the significance level, all of you getting. And that's why the difference is in all of these aspects, and those are statistical formula, level of significance, table value used for testing significance, okay. That's why your correct answer should be 4. Next, a null hypothesis is, now what is the definition of null hypothesis? Whether it is an intelligent hunch about probable result, or it is a type of research hypothesis, or it is a statistical hypothesis to be tested, or it is a research hypothesis formulated for a statistical inference. So basically students, a null hypothesis is a statement in that we predict that there is no relationship between the variables under study. And in the research methodology we only test the null hypothesis, okay. This is the only hypothesis that we test in the research process, and that's why your correct answer should be 3, that is, it is a statistical hypothesis to be tested, because there are lots of research hypotheses including directional hypothesis, alternative hypothesis, which is also called as a research hypothesis, statistical hypothesis over there, simple hypothesis, composite hypothesis is there, but there is only one hypothesis which is the null hypothesis, and that is only tested in the whole research process, not other any kind of hypothesis. Okay, and that's why your correct answer should be 3. When we reject the null hypothesis, we are suggesting that the treatment is dash the dependent variable. So whenever we reject the null hypothesis in the research, then after that what will happen to the dependent variable and independent variable? So whether the treatment is not related with the dependent variable, or whether the treatment is likely to affect the dependent variable, or whether the treatment is not likely to affect the dependent variable, or none of these. So basically students, there are two basic types of hypothesis in whole research process, and those are null hypothesis, okay, that I have given the definition for this earlier in this video, and the another one is alternative hypothesis, okay, which is also called as the research hypothesis. Because in the alternative hypothesis we predict that there is the relationship between the two variables, but in the null hypothesis we predict that there is no relationship between the two variables under study. And that's why whenever we reject the null hypothesis, then automatically we accept the alternative hypothesis, okay. And that's why here ultimately we accept that there is the relationship between the two variables. So it means that the treatment is going to likely affect the dependent variable. It means that whenever we study the variables in the research process, so basically there are two common types of variables, and those are independent variables and dependent variables, okay. And whenever there is a relationship between these variables, then obviously independent variable is the cause variable, so it causes some effects in the dependent variable. So whenever we alter the values of independent variables, then obviously it will affect the values of the dependent variable. So it's like that, and that's why whenever we reject the null hypothesis, then obviously we are going to accept the alternative hypothesis, and that's why it suggests that the treatment is affecting the dependent variable, and that's why your correct answer should be 2, that is likely to affect the dependent variable. Which of the following outcomes is reflected when we fail to reject a false null hypothesis? So whenever we fail to reject a false null hypothesis, then what will happen? So whether there will be type 2 error or there will be type 1 error, or when there is both types of errors, and those are type 1 and type 2 error, or none of these. So students, basically there are two types of errors in the whole null hypothesis testing part, and those are type 1 error and type 2 error, okay. So within the type 1 error, when it will happen, or what is the outcome? So basically whenever there is null hypothesis, okay, and you are going to reject the null hypothesis, though it is true, okay, this null hypothesis is true, but still I am going to reject it. So in that case type 1 error will happen. And in what situation type 2 error happens? So whenever there is a null hypothesis, okay, and this null hypothesis is false, but I am not going to reject it, so I am going to accept it, okay. So in this situation basically type 2 error happens, and that's why the above situation in the question is basically the type 2 error, okay, because here the null hypothesis is false, but we are failing to reject it. It means that the null hypothesis is false, but we are accepting it, okay, and that's why in this situation your outcome will be type 2 error, okay. And I want to tell you one thing, that students, in the research methodology part, okay, either type 2 error will happen or type 1 error will happen, okay. Both the types of error and those are type 1 and type 2 error will not happen simultaneously in one research process. So understand this thing, students, okay, and that's why your correct answer should be either type 2 error or type 1 error. So you need to eliminate this option as a whole, okay, whenever such kinds of question will asked in your entrance exam, okay. And that's why in this situation type 2 error is occurring. which of the following is correct while conducting a test of significance. So whenever I am doing a test of significance, then okay, which of these following options are correct? So alpha is the probability of finding a significant correlation or difference erroneously by chance alone. Alpha should be set by the experimenter before the experiment. Alpha values are often set to 0.05 or 0.01, but there is nothing sacred about these numbers, all of these. So basically students, test of significance means what? So basically test of significance is nothing but you are testing your null hypothesis by using the statistical methods in the whole research process. Okay, and that's why what is exactly this alpha? So alpha is what? As we have seen earlier in this video that type 1 error occurs whenever we are testing the null hypothesis. So the probability of occurring type 1 error, okay, is called as alpha, and that's why ultimately alpha is the probability of finding a significant correlation or difference erroneously. All of you getting? Because this is the probability of occurring a type 1 error, and that's why ultimately this is the probability of finding a significant correlation between the variables or difference between the variables, but by chance alone. All of you getting? And as well, there is some common values for alpha, and experimenter or researcher should set these values before the experiment, because they will understand exactly what will happen or what will be the results of their research. Okay, and alpha values are often set to 0.05 or 0.01, but there is nothing sacred about these numbers. Again, this statement is correct because the smaller the values of alpha, the greater is the test of significance value. So I mean to say that your test results will be more significant when the alpha values will be more smaller. All of you getting? And that's why all of these options are correct in regard to the test of significance part. Okay, now next is type 1 error occurs if. Now this is the easiest question. Okay, so whenever students you will understand exactly what is the type 1 error and type 2 error, then you won't fail to answer these questions correctly in your exam. All of you getting? So let us see different options. The null hypothesis is rejected even though it is true. The null hypothesis is accepted even though it is false. Both the null hypothesis as well as alternative hypothesis are rejected. None of the above. So your correct answer should be obviously 1, as I have told you earlier in this video that whenever the null hypothesis is true but still we reject it, then in that situation type 1 error occurs. Okay, all of you getting? And that's why your correct answer should be 1. Okay, a statement of prediction. Now here focus on the word prediction, that sets forth the basis for testing the relationship between variables in an attempt to link theory to reality is called. So from these options, which is the statement of prediction, and this statement of prediction gives us a basic idea, okay, for testing the relationship between the variables. And as well, this is the statement of prediction. Okay, and we are going to test this statement of prediction because we need to understand, okay, the relationship of the theory to reality. We are going to link the theory to reality. Okay, so this kind of statement of prediction is called as what? Whether it is random sampling, whether it is questionnaire, whether it is hypothesis, whether it is assumption. So all of you now understood that, students. Now the correct answer is hypothesis, because hypothesis is the statement of prediction. That's why I have told you that focus on this word prediction. So whenever you see prediction in the research methodology section, then it is nothing but the hypothesis. And one more thing is that hypothesis gives us the basic information, okay, about what? About the testing of relationship between the variables under study, and as well this is the attempt to link theory part to the reality. All of you getting? And that's why your correct answer should be hypothesis, not assumption, because there is a lot of difference between hypothesis and assumption. Assumption is only the thing which comes after our intuitive thinking, but hypothesis is the proper prediction. It is a proper statement of prediction. This is not a intuitive thinking part. And as well, hypothesis includes the relationship between the variables, and as well this is an attempt to link theory to reality, but assumption is not like this. All of you getting? And random sampling is the technique in the research process, okay, by using which we are going to select the samples from the target population. And questionnaire is the data collection method under which researcher asks the questions to the respondents and respondents give the answers to them. And that's why your correct answer should be 3. Okay. Hypothesis must have. So hypothesis must have which kind of feature or characteristic? So whether it is testability, whether it is applicability, whether it is durability or measurement. So hypothesis must have testability. This is the most important characteristic hypothesis must have, because whenever hypothesis does not have testability, then how we are going to test it? By using the statistical techniques. And that's why hypothesis must have testability. Okay, and that's why we can test it by using statistical techniques, and finally we get the results. Okay, whether the results will be significant or non-significant. All of you getting? And that's why hypothesis must have testability. It should be clearly, notify exactly what is the relationship between the variables, and hypothesis, it should have clarity as well. That's why your correct answer should be 1. To test a null hypothesis, a researcher uses. So whenever I want to test a null hypothesis, then what type of statistical technique I should use? So whether it is t-test or ANOVA or X-square or factorial analysis. So in this situation, a researcher uses ANOVA. So let me tell you why. So t-test is the parametric test, as we have seen earlier in before videos, right? So this is the parametric test, and here there are 2 groups, group 1 and group 2, and we are going to find out the mean values of group 1 and group 2, and we are going to compare these values, okay, whether the values are different or equal. And by comparing these mean values, we will get the results of our research. All of you getting? And this is nothing but the t-test, and t-test is going to compare only 2 variables. Okay, by using the t-test we can only compare the 2 variables, okay, in a whole research process. ANOVA, what is this? So ANOVA is the extension of t-test. I mean to say, this is the test which is based upon t-test only, but this is the advanced t-test. Okay, and here we are going to analyze the variance basically. Okay, this is the analysis of variance, and within the ANOVA test we are going to compare the means of different groups, but here we can compare more than 2 variables at a time, and that's why ANOVA test is more favorable than t-test. Okay, and that's why researcher uses ANOVA to test null hypothesis, because sometimes in a research process there are more than 2 variables. So in that situation we need to use ANOVA, okay, than t-test. Okay, what is X-square? X-square is the chi-square test. Okay, and chi-square test is a non-parametric test, and chi-square test is done to understand the difference between the expected values and the values that we get through our results basically. Okay, and that's why to test a null hypothesis, researcher does not use chi-square test. Okay, researcher uses null hypothesis. And what is factorial analysis? So basically factorial analysis is the technique by which we reduces a large variable into smaller variable factor, and that's why it is called as a factorial analysis. So your correct answer for this question should be 2. Okay. Next is, if the null hypothesis is false, then which of the following is accepted? This is the easiest question, students. Whenever we reject the null hypothesis because it is false, then what type of hypothesis we are going to accept? Whether it is null hypothesis, positive hypothesis, negative hypothesis, or alternative hypothesis. So obviously, students, whenever we are going to reject the null hypothesis and it is false, then in that situation we are going to accept the alternative hypothesis, which is also called as the research hypothesis, right? That I have told you earlier in this video. Okay, that's why your correct answer should be 4, that is alternative hypothesis. Start with our today's session. Given below are two statements, statement 1 and statement 2. So let us see what are these statements. The null hypothesis states that students will recall significantly more information on a Monday morning than on a Friday afternoon. Okay. And what is statement 2? The alternative hypothesis states that there will be no significant difference in the amount recalled on a Monday morning compared to a Friday afternoon. So over here, students, we need to answer the question like which of these statements are basically correct or incorrect. All of you getting? And as I have told you earlier in yesterday's video only, that null hypothesis states basically about that there is no relationship between the two variables. Okay, no relationship. But alternative hypothesis states that there is relationship between the two variables. But if we read both of these statements, then within the null hypothesis part they have mentioned that there is significant relationship between the information on a Monday morning, okay, and on a Friday afternoon. So there is basically the difference, okay, between the information grabbed by the student on a Monday morning and as well information grabbed by a student on a Friday afternoon basically. But in the alternative hypothesis, they have stated that there is no any significant difference between these two things, and that's why exactly opposite statements have been stated over here. So in the place of null hypothesis, they have given the definition of alternative hypothesis, and in the place of alternative hypothesis, they have given the definition of null hypothesis, and that's why your correct answer should be 2, because both of these statements are incorrect. All of you getting, students? Because both of these statements are incorrect. Okay. Now next is a hypothesis that states zero difference or no difference between the parameter and its assumed value is known as. So whenever a hypothesis states us that there is no difference or zero difference between the parameter and its assumed value, then what type of hypothesis is it? Whether it is simple hypothesis, whether it is directional hypothesis, or whether it is non-directional hypothesis, or whether it is null hypothesis. Okay, so as I have told you earlier in this video only, that such kind of hypothesis is called as the null hypothesis. So you can actually familiarize the word null. So the meaning of null itself is zero. Okay, so it means that there is zero difference or there is zero relationship between the parameter and its assumed value. Okay, what is simple hypothesis? So basically simple hypothesis states us the exact relationship between the variables. Okay, there are already, okay, whatever relationship between the variables already there, okay, exact relationship is going to be stated by simple hypothesis. Okay, now what is directional hypothesis? So basically directional hypothesis is the hypothesis which states about the result in one direction only. Okay, it has only one direction, and that's why this kind of hypothesis is tested by one tail test. Okay, and I think we have seen this test as well in yesterday's video, so for that you can refer to yesterday's video. And what is non-directional hypothesis? So this is exactly opposite to the directional hypothesis, okay, because here the hypothesis does not state about the direction of the results of the test, and that's why this hypothesis is tested by two-tail test, okay, two-tail test, and that's why your correct answer should be 4 students, which is null hypothesis. When a researcher rejects a true null hypothesis in his or her study and accepts the alternative hypothesis, what type of error is likely? So whenever a researcher rejects a true null hypothesis and accepts the alternate hypothesis, then after that what type of error will occur? As I have told earlier in previous video, students, that there are 2 types of error occur, okay, whenever we test the null hypothesis in the research process. So those types of errors are type 1 error and type 2 error. So basically, students, type 1 error occurs when we reject the true null hypothesis, okay, whenever we reject the true null hypothesis, then in that situation type 1 error occurs, and whenever type 2 error occurs, then in that situation we are going to accept the false null hypothesis, okay, false null hypothesis. So these 2 concepts are really important to all of you, because on these concepts every time at each year you will be getting questions in the PhD entrance test, okay, and that's why in this question your correct answer should be 1, that is type 1 error, because the question asked regarding type 1 error itself, because here we are going to reject the true null hypothesis over here, and in that situation type 1 error occurs, okay. The probability of not accepting the null hypothesis when the alternative hypothesis is acceptable is called. So what is the probability of not accepting the null hypothesis? And in that situation basically alternative hypothesis is acceptable. So it means that here null hypothesis is false, and that's why we are not accepting it. Okay, so what is the probability of this kind of situation? So whether it is a rejection range, whether it is demarcation, or whether it is normative incidence, or whether it is power. So students, your correct answer should be power, because power is the probability of rejecting null hypothesis when in fact it is false. So whenever this null hypothesis, okay, is false, actually it is false in reality, and that's why we are rejecting it, okay, and the probability of rejecting this false null hypothesis is basically called as what? Power, okay, and that's why your correct answer should be 4, okay, and that's why you can also say that power is the probability of avoiding type 1 error, or power is the probability of not making type 2 error in simple words, okay. So there are lots of definition for power, but in simple words you can say that power is the probability of not making type 2 error. All of you getting? Now students, what is this demarcation? What is this? So basically demarcation is the marking of limits or boundaries. Then what is this normative incidence? So basically normative incidence is taken from the normative data itself, okay, and this is the data from a reference population that establishes a baseline distribution for score or measurement, and against which score or measurement can be compared, okay. And what is rejection range? Rejection range is also called as the critical range, okay, and this is the region and is a set of values for test statistic for which null hypothesis is rejected, okay. So it includes the values, and for these values basically we are going to reject the null hypothesis. But for this question your correct answer should be 4, that is power. Next, given below are 2 statements. Now here as well you have been given 2 statements, statement 1 and 2, okay, and we need to give the answers, basically what are the statements correct from these 2 statements, okay. Now let us see what is statement 1. Type 1 error refers to the decision to reject the null hypothesis when it is incorrect. Okay, and what is statement 2? Sampling error occurs due to the violation of the principle of random sampling. So basically, as we have seen earlier in this video, that type 1 error, basically what is that? This refers to the decision that we are going to reject the null hypothesis, okay, when it is basically true or correct. Okay, but exactly opposite is given in this statement. Okay, and that's why this statement becomes false. And what is the second statement? Sampling error occurs due to the violation of the principle of random sampling. Okay, so basically sampling error occurs due to the mistakes in the sampling techniques, or due to the mistakes in choosing the wrong sample size. All of you getting? So sampling error does not occur due to the violation of the principle of random sampling, and that's why this again statement becomes false. So your correct answer should be 1 over here, because both of these statements are false. Okay, using an appropriate parametric test in a research project, the researcher finds evidence to reject the null hypothesis. In doing so, which type of error is likely? So basically, a researcher did a particular parametric test in a research project, and after doing the parametric test, he finds the evidence that he need to reject the null hypothesis. Okay, so whenever he is rejecting the null hypothesis, then in that situation what type of error will occur? So whether alpha error will occur or beta error will occur, or both alpha and beta errors will occur, or neither alpha not beta error will occur. So basically students, there are two types of error that I have told you earlier, and those are type 1 error, okay, and type 2 error. Okay, so again I am going to tell you about this. So type 1 error occurs when we are going to reject the null hypothesis whenever it is true. Okay, all of you getting? Null hypothesis. And type 2 error occurs when we are going to accept the false null hypothesis. Okay, so the probability of occurring type 1 error is called as alpha. Okay, is called as alpha error or alpha, and the probability of occurring type 2 error is called as the beta or beta error. But in this situation, basically researcher is going to reject the null hypothesis, and he is not going to accept the null hypothesis, and that's why over here type 2 error gets eliminated. So the only remaining option will be type 1 error, and its probability is what? Alpha error, and that's why your correct answer should be 1, that is alpha error. Okay, and as well students, both the errors does not occur simultaneously in any research process. Okay, so your correct answer should be 1. Next, given below are two statements, statement 1 and statement 2. So let us see statement 1. In research, null hypothesis when rejected offers the scope for accepting the alternative hypothesis or substantive research hypothesis. Okay, and statement 2 is when the null hypothesis is rejected, there will be chances for committing a beta rather than alpha error. So now the statement 1 states that whenever in a research process, whenever we reject the null hypothesis, then obviously it offers us the scope that we need to accept the alternative or substantive research hypothesis, and this statement is correct because whenever we reject the null hypothesis, then automatically we accept the alternative hypothesis. Okay, because this is the rule. Okay, and that's why this statement is correct. But the second statement states that whenever we reject the null hypothesis, then there will be chances for committing a beta error rather than alpha error. But this statement is incorrect, because as we have seen earlier in this video, that whenever we reject the null hypothesis, then there will be the chances for occurring type 1 error. Okay, not type 2 error, because within the type 2 error we are going to accept the null hypothesis, we don't reject it, and the probability of occurring type 1 error is itself what? Alpha. Okay, and that's why over here there will be chances for committing alpha error. Okay, there should not be beta error, and that's why your correct answer should be 3, because over here statement 1 is correct but statement 2 is incorrect. Okay, next, a research scholar finds through statistical analysis that the value of t is significant. What decision is warranted on the basis of this hypothesis? So basically a research scholar is doing statistical analysis in his research process, and after doing the statistical analysis he finds that the value of t is significant. Okay, so based on this value of t which is significant, okay, what decision he will take about the hypothesis? So whether he will reject the null hypothesis, or whether he will accept the research hypothesis, or whether he accept the null hypothesis, or whether he reject the research hypothesis, or whether there is no decision is warranted in respect to the research hypothesis. So as I have told you earlier that whenever we reject the null hypothesis, then obviously we need to accept the research hypothesis, and vice versa. And null hypothesis basically states us that there is no difference or no relationship between the variables, but research hypothesis alternatively tells us that there is a difference or relationship between the two variables. Okay, and over here after doing the statistical analysis, researcher has got a t value significant. So it means that whenever we get the t value as a significant value, then we need to accept the research hypothesis over here. Okay, and that's why in this situation we need to reject the null hypothesis, and that's why the two decisions is warranted over here on the basis of this hypothesis, and these two decisions are that a null hypothesis should be rejected and research hypothesis should be accepted. So your correct answer should be 1, that is A and B only. Okay, next, hypothesis in research means. What is the meaning of hypothesis? As I have told you earlier in the previous video as well, hypothesis is the basically the prediction of the results of your whole research process. Okay, and that's why whenever you are doing a proper prediction, then this is a statement, and basically this statement includes a proper clarity about the variables under study. It includes the clearly definition about the proper relationship between the variables. Okay, and that's why hypothesis is intellectual guess, this is a brilliant guess, and this is an intelligent guess, all of these. Okay, and that's why your correct answer should be 1, that is 1, 2 and 3. So hypothesis can't be a negative guess. Okay, because if it would be a negative guess, then how we can test it? Okay, and that's why always it should be an intelligent, then intellectual and brilliant guess. A good hypothesis must possess the following main characteristics. Now over here they have given some characteristics of hypothesis. So we need to identify the main characteristics of a good hypothesis over here. So let us see different characteristics. Hypothesis should be capable of being tested. So it means that hypothesis should have testability. So we should be able to test the hypothesis. A good hypothesis can defy law of nature. So it means that good hypothesis deny the law of nature basically. Hypothesis should be clear and precise. A good hypothesis permits of the application of deductive reasoning. Hypothesis should be unlimited in scope. So basically students, as we have seen earlier in yesterday's video, that hypothesis should have testability. It means that it should be capable or able to be get tested. because we need to test the hypothesis so that we will get the final results of our whole research process, and that's why hypothesis should be capable of being tested. So this is one of the main characteristic of a good hypothesis. Good hypothesis can defy law of nature. So this is basically incorrect, because good hypothesis should able to clearly specify and permit the law of nature. It should not defy the law of nature. All of you getting? And hypothesis should be clear and precise. Yes, this is again the main characteristic of good hypothesis, because hypothesis should be clear and it should have clarity so that we can easily test it. Then hypothesis permits of the application of deductive reasoning. Deductive reasoning is the process, or you can say approach of a research. So in this approach, basically we have an existing theory, and based upon an existing theory we are going to formulate a hypothesis, and after that we are going to test the hypothesis by using different statistical techniques, and after that finally we get the results. Okay, so this is nothing but the whole approach of deductive reasoning towards the research, and basically good hypothesis permits this application of deductive reasoning for its testing. Okay, because without deductive reasoning we can't test the hypothesis, and that's why again this is the main characteristic of good hypothesis. And the last one is incorrect, because a hypothesis should be limited in scope. Okay, it should not have unlimitations in the scope. Okay, that's why your correct answer should be 2, that is A, C and D only, because A, C, D, these are the options which are the main characteristics of a good hypothesis. So students, thank you for watching this session. So if you have any doubts, you can ask me in the comment box.